Hello, hello, welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Preston Jacobs. We are hanging here in Santo Domingo. It was a hot one today in the DR. I've been living in the DR for about a year and it's hot here. But man, the last week has just been a heat wave that I've not seen since I've been here. And I've been here, like I said, a full year, a full cycle. So it's like I know how hot it gets. It's out of control. I took some ibuprofen to deal with the headache I have because it was a little dehydration. I was out all day, but man, oh man, let's talk about let's talk about this map here because it's interesting. It's so this map, which sometimes floats around the fandom a little bit as an interesting relic, was made by a fan. Prior to Dance and the Lands of Ice and Fire. And there's some debate on whether or not it was made before Feast or if it was just post Storm. But I don't think it matters too much because the things he gets right and the things he gets wrong, Feast doesn't add that much. It adds a little, but here's some interesting things about this because obviously in A Feast for Crows, I'm sorry, in all of the books we get a map of Westeros, and so obviously this is all normal on the left, so we don't need to worry about that. But as we head east, keep in mind that in A Storm of Swords we get a map of Slaver's Bay. But it's not until A Dance with Dragons that we get the free cities. And it's not until the Land of Ice and Fire that we get really the placement of how the free cities relate to Slaver's Bay and everything. So this fan put together this before, certainly before Dance and the Lands of Ice and Fire came out. And there's a few things about it that are better than the canon, and there's a few things that are kind of outrageous, like not great. So it's pretty interesting. So let's start out. So looking at it, of course, at first, we don't really know how in the maps before the Lands of Ice and Fire, like. How narrow the Narrow Sea is. Here he's made it a little large, but keep in mind that after Storm, like no one's made the trip yet, So like until Tyrion and Arya and Sam like and Quentin and Victarion like do the trip, we're not really sure how far things are, how long it takes, how many weeks or whatever. So, having the Narrow Sea be a little wider, I suppose I can understand that, but it's a little narrower. Here are some interesting things. Now, according to this map, he's placed the Summer Isles like way off in this direction, which it's a little understandable based on the map that we're given in of Slaver's Bay. They just kind of point off that way as the Summer Isles, and they talk about the Summer Isles being in the south and all of that. So having it be south of Westeros rather than being kind of south of the Narrow Sea is completely, one could understand that. Making the stepstones so large is so weird in this. But I suppose there is nothing. I'm trying to think, like, this mentioning, like, why would the creator think that the stepstones were so great, were so important? Fighting in the stepstones between Tyrosh and Lyse is mentioned in A Storm of Swords, and that. I guess because the Stepstones was such a it changes. I understand why he would make the stepstones so large. You hear about these wars in the stepstones, and so you think that the stepstones must be significant. But later on, once you find out that the stepstones are small, like that is the point, that people are fighting over nothing. But it recontextualizes it. Like if it's something where people are fighting over, you think it must be significant, but then the reveal that it's insignificant is the point. You're supposed to recontextualize the wars as being over nothing. So that was kind of, but so I understand, why the stepstones are this way. Now, Braavos is probably the one that's most interesting on why it was placed here, and why it's on an island and things like that. Keep in mind that in A Game of Thrones, Jon Snow describes Braavos as the 100 islands of Braavos in the sea. And so when given that description, the 100 isles of Braavos in the sea, why would anyone assume that the 100 isles meant a lagoon not in the sea, but in a brackish bay? It's in a sense, like, placing Braavos in the middle of the narrow sea is kind of understandable. Not to mention, people say on Braavos in a Game of Thrones, and so this idea that Braavos is on an island, and it's among 100 islands in the sea, versus a lagoon. Now, Braavos is placed pretty far south here, which I suppose if you're first thinking about lemon trees, you'd want to put it south, not knowing about lemon gates and the purposeful contradiction. The problem is in A Clash of Kings, they specifically say when they're shipping off Myrcella that Braavos is to the north. It is well established that Braavos is to the north. Not to mention the fact that Littlefinger's family is from Braavos, and he mentions that it's kind of just across from the fingers and things like that. So Braavos should be. It's pretty established that it's northern. So I understand, like, if you're dealing with Lemon Gate, that it's got lemon trees. It's got to be further south. That someone would do that, especially when in A Storm of Swords, Sharma the innkeep specifically says that lemons don't grow in the Riverlands. So you he's dealing with some contradictions here on why Braavos was put where it is, but it's hard. Like, you're specifically told that Myrcella, that they're striking north from King's Landing to Braavos. So what to do? Some things here, he gets the location of Norvos and Qohor fairly correct, because that's Daenerys' journey in A Game of Thrones. So that's done really well here. One big thing that's missing is the Rhoyne. The Rhoyne is mentioned several times in the first few books as this significant river that has cities on it. But there's no Rhoyne here. Like, there should have been an attempt to throw the Rhoyne in somewhere, but that was not done. The port of Ibn is moved closer. You hear about Ibonese. You assume that they are closer in the world than they are later on, and then you kind of then you see. I understand why the creator put Vastoth Rock where it was narratively, considering that Daenerys goes from, like, being just outside the forest of Qohor to her like her next chapter being in Vastoth Rock. There's a reason why it's put further east, and that's mainly she's pregnant and she has to have several months go by. So the distance would be too short for it to be several months. So Vastoth Rock has to go very, very far out. But the creator did a really good job here, where saying, oh, I've got to go to Lazar. Lazar is specifically described as being near Marine, upriver. It's established in a class of kings that it's upriver on the Skahazadon from Marine, and so he does a good job here. But we'll see what's with the canon. The canon kind of there's things in the canon that like are kind of fucked up. And then Dany passes through the Red Waste, has Vace Teloro to Karth. We kind of know from Jorah's descriptions that ET and Ashai by the Shadow are to the east, and we kind of know from the map that was provided in A Storm of Swords that the Jade Sea and Karth are to the east here. So, overall there are a lot of good things here, or I kind of understand what they were up to, what the creator was up to. When you compare it to, and I'm only using this map because it's clearer than the one that's in the Lands of Ice and Fire. I mean, I can put the Lands of Ice and Fire map up here, but it's harder to make out all of the things in here. But this one's crisper. There's some things that are a little weird, right? In when you actually get to like the Lands of Ice and Fire. So specifically, as I was saying, with Dany's journey, you need several months. So she gets pregnant, and then she needs to have like an 8-month journey essentially, because she has kind of an early pregnancy, an early birth for Rhaego, her stillbirth. And so you kind of need 8 months. Like, how long would someone travel for 8 months? And so they end up shoving Vaes Dothrak all the way to the northeast here because Dany needs that time to pass. But the thing is, we're specifically told that by Dany that, okay, Lazar is at the top of the Skahazadon, so they have to make the Skahazadon this incredibly long river. But if the Skahazadon were that long, like the base, it would be much big. It would be a bigger river, and the base would be a massive delta. But Marine is not a massive delta. Like, the Skahazadon is fairly thin at its mouth, with armies just parked on the other side like it's nothing. The Skahazadon just wouldn't be like that. But they needed to make the Skahazadon really long so that Dany would run into it when she hit Lazar and went on to the Red Waste and things like that. So yeah, there's some screw up there. What to do with Vaes Dothrak. It's just off in the middle of nowhere. It's also just I always thought that Vaes Dothrak, I mean, it's purely done because of Dany's pregnancy, but realistically, if Vaes Dothrak were that fucking far off, the Khalasars would not be raiding the free cities that often if it takes them a fucking year to get there. Like, that's just too fucking far, right? Like, it's just too fucking far to be like, let's do some raiding and being gone a year, all the way across the continent for these little raids. Like, it just wouldn't happen. Their society would just, I don't know, stick around. But yeah, ET does seem more remote. I'm looking at this. ET does kind of seem more remote than Ashai, because Ashai's on the water, so people could, and it does feel more exotic, but it seems like people just visit Ashai more as a port. I mean, I don't think that's necessarily a contradiction. I mean, like, Singapore, for example, was visited massively by people, but you could argue that, places in India would be considered more strange and remote and exotic because people just weren't stopping on the coast of Burma, when they're just trying to make it to Singapore or something like that. I think Ashai might be something like that, where people are trying to get there and not stopping by somewhere else. But didn't Dothraki Khalasar camp at those cities for an unknown amount of time? That's the thing, is we don't know how fast they're going. I do think that if I were to make this map, there's no way I would have put Vastoth Rock that far. I would have just been like, you know what, they were doing a leisurely ride, and they stopped in various places, and maybe they were in Vastoth Rock for a long, long time, you know. So it doesn't really like matter. Myanmar, Burma is of course like there's arguments one way or the other. I mean, there's good arguments both ways on what you're gonna what one calls it, but yeah, on and what one should call it. But whatever you like. it's I fully understand the arguments both ways, but I don't know. Burma is what specifically the American government insists on calling the area. Um, is Lorath just placed randomly? Kind of, because we don't really know like where Lorath should be. Um, so like, is there any logic to this on why they placed things where they placed it? And they got some things right. Volantis should be close to Valyria. Um, you know, they placed the free cities closer together just because so that I probably because Danny was doing a bunch of traveling between them. Um, that kind of stuff. But yeah, no Royan is a um, big no no. But like I said, I think this placement of Vastoth Rock and Lazar and the Skahazadon being shorter makes a lot more sense than what we have in the Lands of Ice and Fire with Vastoth Rock being off in the middle of nowhere. Also, I think Ib being so far away is ridiculous. Like, there would be all sorts of different cities along the northern coast here that we'd be hearing about, rather than this like random island and kingdom of Ib, like in the middle of freaking nowhere. Like Ib is way too far away, in my opinion. That doesn't make any sense to me. But and like I say, there's contradictions and retcons on like what Bravos was and what the Thousand Isles or the 100 Islands of Bravos and stuff like that. But not a bad attempt, considering. And I do wonder, just with the shapes and everything, the shape of the continent and stuff like that, if this was somehow seen and used when they made the Lands of Ice and Fire and stuff like that. I don't know. It's hard to say. Obviously, no one would admit it. But they got Sotheros in there, which is on the map in the Valyria map in A Storm of Swords. But yeah. Lorath chapter in the fanfic over Riot. I'm just like, is Arya gonna go to Lorath? Who's gonna go to Lorath? Currently rereading Game of Thrones, and Arya Forrest, she hears voices in her head urging her on, but she doesn't know where they're coming from. I'll have to. Well, I'll be getting that soon on the reread. I'll be better explaining there. Um, yeah, Slaver's Bay is huge. That's the thing, is they weren't quite sure of how large you're gonna place it and stuff like that. Um, yeah, everything is matching from the Storm provided maps. Like, the detail in Slaver's Bay is perfect because it's all related to the maps that were provided then. Okay, but that was just this fun little thing here that kind of highlighted a few things that I thought were fun. They make the woods of Qohor massive because we hear about Danny going through it, but and then the Dothraki Sea and the Red Waste are just based on Dany's journey very much. Um, but actually, in general, maybe it just seems like the world is Essos is smaller in this version, you know. So anyway, not bad. Okay. Let's make sure I start from the beginning here. Uncle Beastie. Preston, the people caring for the people caring for Aeron. Will the people caring for Aeron shave him during the resurrection in Starfall, bald and naked as the day he was born, paralleling Cersei? Interesting. I hadn't thought about that. I mean, you are right that there is a lot of there, in a lot of cultures there's this idea of ablution and shaving in a rebirth fashion, much like I mean, this is done in Islam, for example. You shave your head and pubes and things like that during a rebirth period. The idea, when you're forgiven of your sins and you're clean again. I always thought that Cersei's shaving was meant to be it's sort of I mean, it's kind of related to Samson in a sense. So you've got the biblical story of Samson where he gets his strength from his hair, and that's his agency, right? And so in a Game of Thrones, between a Game of Thrones and a Clash of Kings, Dany and Arya both lose their hair at the same time. In a very similar. I mean, Cersei loses her hair too. So we have these three women losing their hair, and Cersei specifically kind of tells us what losing your hair means. Like, she specifically says, they're trying to strip my femininity from me. They're trying to take the power I have, because Cersei's power is her attractiveness. And if they take her hair, she's no longer that attractive, and she can't use it to manipulate people. They're taking her agency from her as a woman. And so there's a similar kind of thing going on with both Arya and Dany as well. Like, obviously Arya, she loses her father at the same time as her hair is cut. And she's immediately called boy. And so she's no longer relying on the agency of being a woman or like the agency of like the protection of her father. She's no longer like the patriarchy and what role she's been given has been stripped from her. She's no longer a highborn girl. She is now a boy, and she has to find her way, outside the traditional roles that have been delegated by the society with the death of Ned and the death of and the death, and the cutting of her hair. And Dany, the same thing happens, right? Like, Khal Drogo is gone. She's no longer has any power through Khal Drogo, just like Arya no longer has any power through her father. I mean, think about like when Arya commands around those guards after she like goes out the sewers and comes back. Like, she could only do that because of the agency that she derived from her father. She could only do that through the power she derived from the patriarchy. So it's the same idea with Dany, right? Like, her power came from Khal Drogo, and all the power that she wielded was through the patriarchy. But now her hair has been taken, and she no longer has Khal Drogo. But, of course, like, she now has dragons, right? And so I kind of felt that was like, reading the story, I think like the losing of the hair is that. Like, when the women losing their hair, it's, oh, you're stripping them of their femininity. They no longer can have agency in the ways women have agency in the story, And when I talk about the traditional ways, like what Catelyn and Sansa kind of see as the way forward, like this is our lane. Like, when we're talking about agency, like the rules of chess, bishops go diagonally, rooks can go horizontal. This is the one we're talking about, the roles of men and women and what agency they have, right? How can they move? And the stripping of the hair is like, the rules have changed. That's the whole point, right? So taking this now to Aeron, I don't know if there's, I would have to think of if it fits, because like what it, does Aeron have certain agency, and like where does it derive from? Yes, like he is a respected priest, and he has the Greyjoy name. So for him to be, his agency to be taken, it would need to be, and those are both kind of unrelated to his hair, like. I don't know if anyone looks at, like, if Aeron were shaved and shaved his beard and shaved his head, would he lose respect as a drowned priest? I don't know. I don't know if that's written, that the drowned priests must have big long beards, and if they didn't have that, everyone would be like, what? I mean, I can let me look this up real quick, because I don't think anything mentioned like that. And of course, we could add it to the fanfic that like it's incredibly important that they have these beards, and if they didn't have them, no one would respect them. And then they go and they shave his beard because it's too filled with lice or something, or too filled with crabs, and he feels like all of a sudden his ability to be a priest is like taken from him. It's almost closer. In that situation, I'd say it's closer to like Pycelle. Like when Pycelle's beard is taken from him, he kind of thinks that all of his power and people perceiving him as wise comes from him having the beard. And so when Tyrion strips him of his beard, he feels very emasculated, much like Samson. Like his wisdom is taken, and he no longer has his agency. So, I mean, I think it could work. But I think I think it's an interesting idea, and I think it could work. But I think it kind of works more like in the Pycelle fashion, than relating to the women in our story. But rather, because in those situations, you're taking their beauty, and killing the patriarchy at the same time. Like Ned dies, the patriarchy is killed. Khal Drogo dies, the patriarchy is killed. That kind of thing. So that was long explanation for like intriguing, but I think maybe it relates more to Pycelle. Berserk with the boys. Yeah, Berserk with Trey Carmine and I recorded a Berserk with the boys a couple days ago, and so it should be out this week. So, could Stoneheart transfer the flame of life to Jaime? Brienne loves him, cries over him. Catelyn's last thoughts are about Ned, who she loved. That's interesting. I've never heard of anybody thinking about Jaime dying and Jaime getting resurrected, and what it would do to Jaime. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, obviously, like, we're told in A Feast for Crows that by Thoros, that he believes that Beric's fire passed from him to Lady Stoneheart. And it's some fans have pointed out that doesn't make that much sense. Like one, nothing passed, for example, from Thoros to Beric. Like that was created from nowhere. So why did Beric need to die for Catelyn to live? Like, what was the point? What was the purpose and point of Beric dying? Was the point of Beric dying just that, Catelyn needed men to follow her, and if Beric were still alive, they'd be following him. But the thing is, there is another faction of the Brotherhood Without Banners listed in A Feast for Crows appendix, and so some people wonder if Beric might have not actually died again. So I want to show the A Feast for Crows appendix has, let's see here. So the A Feast for Crows appendix, we get down to Beric. And you can see, like, this is an important thing because we have clearly Beric Dondarrion, even though he's dead, he's leading this other group of the Brotherhood Without Banners. Edric Dane, the Mad Huntsman, Greenbeard, Anguy the Archer, Mary O'Moontown, Waddy Miller, Swampy Meg, John O'Nutton. Some of these characters haven't appeared yet. We've never heard of Swampy Meg, or John O'Nutton. Like, they just are in this appendix. So how can you be led by a dead man? Well, Beric was dead in the first book. So I do wonder if, let me check A Storm of Swords appendix, right? Because if you look in that, we've got, is Beric, Beric I guess is alive in this one, even though it says oft reported dead. So, I mean, we can believe the appendix and be like, well, he's actually dead. He's actually dead this time, versus, he's an undead thing. Because, I mean, Lady Stoneheart is not listed as an undead thing, but, how much do you trust the appendix? The appendix also says that Jon's a bastard, that kind of stuff, and the son of Ned Stark. So, what do you do? What do you do? So I'm just trying to think if, like, I mean, I think the Jaime and the Brienne story I think it's mainly about Brienne at this point, actually. Like, I do think that, like, Brienne's choices going forward are what's important about her relationship with Catelyn, mirroring Jaime's relationship. But I just don't know if, like, if Cat would have to go a long way at this point to all of a sudden feel bad and kiss people. And this is what all the problems I had with the theories that Catelyn was going to resurrect Jon, that she was going to feel really bad, that she was so mean to him. It's like Catelyn literally strung up Podrick Payne, a little boy, and was ready to kill him. In order, that's where the undead Lady Stoneheart is. So, like, getting her to a point where she feels bad and all of a sudden wants to resurrect people, I don't know if that sounds like her right now. Like she's going around killing people, hanging people that were tangentially related to the Red Wedding and things like that. And like I say, like, Hyle Hunt and Podrick Payne didn't do anything. They were innocent, and she was ready to freaking string them up and hang them. So I don't know if she's going to be kissing anybody and resurrecting anybody. I think she's supposed to represent, like, Jaime's relationship with Aerys is Brienne's relationship with Lady Stoneheart. That we're supposed to see naked how dumb Brienne's feelings about following someone are, just as Jaime's ideas were dumb. Like, swearing your loyalty to someone is a dumb idea. It's a really dumb idea. It means you are giving up your moral code and saying that you are just going to do whatever this other person says is right. My morality is based on what they say is right, which is not a moral code. You know, it's having even though it's so honorable when we in Lord of the Rings when Boromir's like, my king, you know, you're like, oh man, he's dying for his king and he's loved his king. But yeah, having like phoning it in and being like, well, I'm just going to do whatever that person believes is not a moral code, right? And so Catelyn having this like doing whatever Lady Stoneheart says, and Lady Stoneheart says, you know, swearing her sword it sounds so honorable. I swear my sword to you. No, that sucks. That's dumb. There's nothing moral about that. So I think it's more about like Brienne needing to kill. Sorry, power outage here. This is if you watch my streams a lot, you know I get these power outages in the Dominican Republic. But I think that's what's important with the story going forward. That Brienne needs to reject Lady Stoneheart and choose her own path, in the same way that Jaime rejected King Aerys and chose his own path. You know, but so I don't know. I don't see the passing of life thing happening. But when's the next Berserk with the boys? I'll probably post it Tuesday. You'll see it Tuesday. Sharma and Harry Swift are in cahoots. Maybe we should have more Lorath in the story. How do you think the others reproduce? I mean, I think that they only reproduce. I think at some point they were called Neverborn, and I think the idea is we've seen how they reproduce, that they take the babies and they turn them into others. I think I don't think that there's. I think that what we saw in the show is probably what George envisioned. I mean, we're specifically told by Gilly's sisters that the brothers are coming, and so I don't think it's any secret that they are the babies. We've here. I think what happens in Samwell. He says, yeah, this is it. He's like, who's they? They, the Raven. They. The boy's brothers, said the old woman on the left. Craster's sons. The white cold's rising out there, Crow. I can feel it on my bones. These poor old bones don't lie. They'll be here soon. The sons. So, I mean, we're straight up told in A Storm of Swords that, I mean, in Clash of Kings, they're like, well, what happens to the sons? Oh, the sons are sacrificed. But then we find out in A Storm of Swords that who's coming? The sons. Well, so the others are the sons. The White Walkers are the sons. So at some point, we know that they get transformed from babies to others. That is literally what we're told in A Storm of Swords, and that's what we see in the show. And so I don't think there's any mystery to it other than what's the process. What is the process of transforming a baby into an other? In the show they just kind of went, touched it becomes it. But I now, do you mean like when they say like how do you think they reproduce? Like how is what is that process? I don't know. I mean, I think they have to construct armor for it. I mean, in the books, the others do have strange crystallized armor. Um, they're not walking around naked like in the show. They do have some sort of. I might argue that it's a refrigeration unit of some sort of thing to regulate their whole body, and that if you puncture it, their entire existence like falls apart. Um, that they're that the circuitry is falls apart and can't keep the thing alive. But it does seem to be that they're taking babies and they're turning them into others and putting them into some sort of suits and changing their bodies, things like that. 10 chapters to explore the free cities. No, I mean, I wish, but we just been putting together the latest Sam chapter, and it's getting long again. I'm just like, oh my God. Because like when you have this structure of the Sam story where Sam is in his host, and then you go back to the Sam story in Old Town, and then he's back in his host. You're kind of getting 3 chapters at once, so you kind of have to, they end up being long. So The Fool is getting to be pretty long here. And, but hopefully I'm going to try to trim it down a little bit. It's, and see how it goes. But, we'll see about that. But yeah, 10 Sam chapters to explore the free cities. I mean, the idea is that Sam is heading east. He's done Lice, Volantis, Marine. So we're getting Sam to Marine, which is going to be. I'm very looking forward to Sam's Marine chapter. It's going to be very fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. Because he's got to find Marwyn. You can't have him searching for Marwyn forever, But he's after Marwyn and Gilly, so he's got to get there. So, but yeah, I mean, I just envisioned like three Sam chapters, and that being that for them. So, and him leaving Old Town and getting to Marine at the same time is kind of the goal. Is the North secession justified? Hmm. I mean, that's an interesting question. I would argue that Robb's rebellion against the crown is justified. That the Iron Throne mistreated his family, and he can't in the world they live in and such. Had he not stood up for his family, they would have everyone would have seen his family as cowards, and they would have kept abusing his family, and there would have been, in a sense, he kind of has to go to war. He has to show some sort of reaction back. But did he need to declare himself king in the North? And many would argue that that's the problem, right? Like him declaring himself king in the North and splitting from either Renly or Stannis was a real problem. Had Robb declared for Renly or Stannis, he would have been in a much stronger position, But Stannis, being an idiot, is like, oh, he's a rebel against me too, because he declared, himself king in the North, and Renly, I'm often confusing the. I think Renly just kind of has a neutrality thing with him, right? Like he can join my kingdom and can maintain himself king, can call himself king, but he still pays taxes to me. I forget if that's if that's just in the show. Um, what did he say? Call himself king? Trying to find that. Yeah, he says Renly's offer is I will gladly confirm him in all of his lands, titles, and honors. He can rule Winterfell as he pleases. He can even go on calling himself king of the north if he likes, so long as he bends the knee and does me homage of his overlord. King is only a word, but fealty, loyalty, service, those I must have. And if he does not give those, my lord. I mean, Renly gives that's a pretty good offer. So, I mean, I guess we don't know what Rob's decision would be. It would, if I think Catelyn probably would have convinced him. Had Renly not died, Catelyn probably would have convinced. Because keep in mind that in A Clash of Kings, Catelyn's a fucking genius. And go over this, like certain characters are geniuses in certain books, and then they're not in others. Like Pycelle is a fucking genius in A Feast for Crows, but like Catelyn is a fucking genius in A Clash of Kings after like her fuck ups in a Game of Thrones, right? So she gets everything right in that book. And so she probably should have she could have convinced Robb of it. But the thing is like Robb he's kind of tricked into secession by his bannermen, which is the problem. They are all like, why should we follow these Southerners? Yeah, King in the North. And he probably should, I guess it doesn't, in the end, it doesn't really matter because the red wedding is going to happen no matter what. Rather, had he seceded or not. I'm trying to think of like, I mean, the big thing is would an alliance between Stannis and Robb have changed anything? Like, let's say Stannis were smarter. In I don't know if it changes much. I mean, does maybe if they had an alliance, like Robb wouldn't have turned around, wouldn't have felt like he was emasculated by the Ironborn invasion of the North, and he would have felt better about staying south and marching on King's Landing side by side with Stannis, and then Stannis and Robb could have turned around and gone back north and dealt with the Ironborn after Stannis's win. I mean, there's a chance of that. Like, does his secession lead to like a feeling that he needed to retake Winterfell? But I don't know if I think he was a little boy getting tricked by not enough tricked, but pressured by his bannermen into secession. But I don't think Northern secession makes much of a difference. I don't think it makes much of a difference at all in the story. I think he's getting red weddinged. He's getting red weddinged one way or the other. I mean, maybe it would have helped in a Stannis North alliance. I don't know. Larger stepstones make sense due to such a big campaign at the time and wider sea because of narrow choke points. Was ridiculous. You'd risk all to hold. I mean, it's kind of true that the amount of fighting over the stepstones is outrageous, and they do talk about these, like, the War of the Nine Penny Kings is, considered this huge thing, where everybody's going off. Even later on, when you start thinking about Daemon's wars, but Daemon's wars aren't even written at this point. Looking back on this map, like, having the stepstones and this large campaign to conquer these lands, and having the nine penny kings, war there over this, it could make sense. I don't know, so long, such a long thing. I'm trying to think, like, so the stepstones, I don't even think they're mentioned until, when are they first mentioned? They're not even mentioned until Storm, the stepstones. New war, fighting on the stepstones, new war between Tyrosh and Lyse. They hope to get Mir. And then that in the same book, they mentioned that that the Blackfire pretenders were there and Barristan slew them on the stepstones. But here, I will say one thing though. Just the name, the stepstones, implies that they're small. Like if you're jumping across a river and you've got these tiny little stepstones, you're going 1, 2, 3, and you're on the other side of like your stream. Okay, that's when we think of like stepstones, like in the traditional sense. Like, oh, I need to use some stepstones to get across a small river. You're not going on and on and on and on and on and on. Like they've got to be small little. They're stones. They're not long islands. This isn't. No one would call Java the stepstones. Like you wouldn't be like Sumatra and Java are just stepstones to Australia. Like no one would ever describe like Indonesia as stepstones. Like they're huge islands, they do have to kind of be small, and it has to be a short distance. Like, oh, you're just taking a few steps. You're not taking a long journey. You're going doot 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 over, right? So I think just the name stepstones kind of, I prefer the canon explanation for them. But I do agree that, like, based on all of the wars, I understand that, like, why they were made that big. Biter's hairlessness implies recent loss of all agency. I know. I mean, Dario also has a weird hairless body for some reason. Weird stuff like that. I'm going to New York City Comic Con. I'll ask about Avalon. Fuck yeah, Blake! If you can get a question in. I mean, if you're in the signing, that's the thing, is everybody kind of gets a question. To like when George is sitting there signing, you can get a quick question into him, and he'll answer. I know they'll tell you, they'll be like, don't ask him any questions, just get your signature, and no, like he'll if you ask a quick question, he will answer it. And if you get one he'll if you happen to ask one in the auditorium, if you're lucky enough, he'll answer a longer one. But in the 60 seconds that you have with him, he'll answer a question. So like I went and got a signature from him once, and I was like, are we going to see the Brave Companions again? And he said, I just wanted something fast and simple. And he goes, oh, well, yeah. Well, you got to remember, a lot of them are dead, but I think a few of them are still alive. So yeah, I know they're gonna. And I was like Urswick the Faithful, and he's like, yeah, no, I think that, yeah, well, we're gonna see them again, And so it just went like that, So yeah, if you can get like, hey, briefly, what was Avalon going to be about? You got it. But thank you, Blake. Thank you. I think that's a really good question that he should be able to answer, that he should be willing to answer. What was Avalon going to be about? Pro athletes shave. Biter, long distance swimmer. Biter might be a swimmer. Biter, there are a lot of bald people in Ice and Fire. You know what's funny about hairstyles, and because when movies show people from the ancient world, they like to show them with like long hair and flipping their hair back, you know, or they have them with a shaved head or something. And I've had several historians tell me that the most popular hairstyle for soldiers and fighters was 100% absolutely the mullet. That the mullet was how they had their hair. And it just makes sense. You want short hair in the front so that there's no hair in your eyes when you're fighting. You don't want hair flopping down into your eyes, okay? Hair, short hair in the front, and then you want on long marches, you want hair to protect your neck because you don't want sunburn. And so it was very clear, like it's like just universally known. Like all pictures show this, all drawings of soldiers show this. They all had fucking mullets. That was the soldier hairstyle, which is interesting because in Iran, I think they banned the mullet years ago as like being culturally inappropriate or something. And it's like, no, every army round the world, didn't matter where you were from. If you were in Persia, China, the Americas, Europe, you had the mullet. I don't know if it works with obviously with sub-Saharan African hair that's curly, but you know, maybe. But the mullet is definitely the way it goes. Oh, if damp hair is damp hair, he can also no longer use his haircut represents the loss of his power and losing of faith in his God. Also ties to Samson losing his power. Yeah, no, it's true. It's true. Um, yeah, it'd be interesting. All right, look, Uncle Beastie, you've convinced me. Okay, I think it'll be at least very interesting and funny if he wakes up and he's completely clean shaven, and like bald head, clean shaven face, and they're like, he's like, "What did you do to me?" And it's like, you were riddled with lice and crabs, like like I'm sorry, like that's just gonna happen, and that he just feels horrible, and he's got no hair, he can't be the damp hair, um, but I think that's a fun little thing. All right. You've convinced me. He will have his head and beard shaven um, when he comes back. I mean, it's not going to matter too much because what he's going to be doing, and he's going to be doing something very significant in Starfall. But and we're going to be finding out a lot about the Danes and things like that. But what he doesn't require. I mean, he's going to be the only Ironborn around. There's not going to be any other Ironborn there. So like, how he looks doesn't really matter at the moment. But I think it's very funny to have him shaved and have this beard taken. I think that's kind of funny. No one would like. I wonder if the Ironborn would even recognize him because I mean, obviously Euron would, but and his brothers, but would anybody else? It'd been so long. Um, Lady Stoneheart will only resurrect Rob. That's true. You know, that's true. My burrito is done. My burrito is done. So what we had what exists here is I don't know if you can see the floor over here, but I've got this battery thing here. I've got one for the internet and I've got one for this computer. And so when the power goes out, that supplies like a couple hours of power. The power is never out for more than 15 minutes, but um, that that makes it so that the stream doesn't stop. I mean, I literally wouldn't be able to do a stream, like do streaming, if I didn't have like that. Like if you've watched my streams, you know that at least every other stream there's a power outage. Like and that means my computer would have turned off, would have had to log back in. It would have been fucking hell. You know. Wasn't Jamie like 18? Let's see. When he stabs Ares, he's 15. He's 50. I think he's 17. He's 15 when he joins the Kingsguard in 281 at Harrenhal, and then he's 17 when he kills Ares. Yeah. Um, baby armor. Mr. Freeze villains. It's kind of true. I kind of do perceive the others kind of like being like Mr. Freeze. Regarding Craster's sons, I meant, are these beings transferring their consciousness from one being to another? Oh. I mean, I would imagine, and and keep in mind, I'm a little biased because it's like all of George's other writings about like collective consciousness. Like I think that the others are a collective consciousness, and so I this is kind of just based on the fact that like other George writing is so obsessed with collective consciousness and blended consciousness that the House of the Undying is blended consciousness, the Werewood Net is blended consciousness. Like if all of those are blended consciousness, then does it make sense that the others are? And I think their attack at the fist of the first men seems rather, at least whoever was controlling all of the whites, that at least the whites' consciousness is linked to whatever other was doing that attack. But I think it makes sense that, say you have 100 others, you get a new baby, that baby hardly has any memories. So yeah, he's got, whatever, a 1-2 day, however long it takes them to get their baby to their transformation site. But a baby that young, I mean, if you have kids, like babies, they just sit there. Okay. Like there's a point when your kids start getting personalities where you're like, wow, like they are there now, like, your kids are kind of dopey and like, not that you don't love them, but there's a point, when they're like getting into 2 years old, and you're just like, oh, wow. You're like sensing that they have a personality, they give you looks, they make jokes. They have, like what, one kid is like a jokester and you can just sense they're a jokester. One kid is grumpy and you can just sense they're grumpy and they kind of become them, when they're babies, they don't have much personality at all. This isn't any secret, but like, yeah, you're adding the baby's consciousness to the collective consciousness of the others, but that baby's consciousness is hardly anything. And then even if it were, it would be one among 100, and then over time, like maybe one dies off, the collective lives on, right? The collective lives on. So, I think that they're not transferring consciousness, but they're adding in another vessel, and then the consciousness kind of exists. There's going to be like a Theseus's ship kind of idea on this, like, because eventually over time, right? Maybe say the others do die. Let's say that they have lifespans that, I don't know, or 300 years or whatever, 500 years. Eventually others do die, but the collective still exists, even though the old ones die off and the new ones come in. So that's how I'm kind of seeing it. I don't see a transfer of consciousness, but I see that the person is added to the ocean A drop of water is added to the ocean, and a drop of water is taken out of the ocean. At what point, is the has the ocean changed or whatever? But that's kind of how I see it. Um, that it's just that it's a collective in the same way that House of the Undying and the Werewood Net are. Um, I mean, you could do the same thing with your computer. You could have a hard drive. You could have like you could have like 10 hard drives, and you're backing everything up, and it's being stored on different stuff, and you can like remove one of your hard drives but make sure that all the data is transferred over, and then add a new hard drive in. And it's like the data is still there even though your hard drives are shifting. you know Sam leaves Old Town. No, I'm thinking that at the end of the third Sam chapter, he leaves Old Town is what I'm seeing is in the story. I mean, at that point, if I don't know how much you're paying attention to the chapter calls, but something big is going to happen in Old Town at that point, and they're going to feel it's not that safe. So. Mm, mm. Let's see here. Yeah, I mean, this is all very true that the Tyrells might have been a longer shot for the Tyrells to join if they saw a unified front. Like Stannis looked weak, and they it may be, but yeah, I don't think. I mean, I do agree that Robb gets nothing out of declaring independence. He gets nothing. Um, and the cost might be coordination with Stannis, or like the Tyrells feeling like they have a shot. Oh, isn't it kind of silly how everyone united for the War of the Ninepenny Kings, just done for narrative convenience or down the line? Um, well, I mean, on which side? I think on Westeros's side, it's pretty easy. I mean, they united for the Greyjoy Rebellion too. You got to remember that these are a bunch of soldiers sitting, like knights sitting around, who have trained for a long time to do battle, and there aren't that many battles. So when a war happens, everyone's like, "Woohoo! I get to one, like use the skills that have been taught my whole life, and it's the only chance I have to get like some honor and glory." Um, Talking to people in the military, and I've talked to many, many, many people in the military. They've been around me my whole life. Um, Not all people in the military like want to go to battle. But when we're talking specifically about Marines, you have like we have our four basic branches of the military. I understand that there's Coast Guard and Space Force and shit like that, but like Navy, Air Force, Army, if you don't have much economic opportunity, or perhaps like, you know, you can join the military. Perhaps you want a good hiring preference. You can join the military. Perhaps you just think that the work they do is interesting. They do a lot of work with high tech equipment, logistics, things like that. There are lots of reasons to join the military other than wanting to fight. In fact, a lot of people join the military, they don't want to fight. They just want to join the military as an organization. People that join the Marines, they kind of want to fight. Like that's the reason they joined. Had they not wanted to fight, they would have joined the Army, the Navy, or the Air Force. So when you talk to Marines, like they're like, well, obviously, like I joined because I kind of wanted to fight, but also like they're training us for years and years to do something. You want to use your training, you want to see where it is. And so I feel like there would be that mentality with any of these knights. They live in this society where like talking about their honor in battle like gives them status, and they've been training and training and training, and it's like, for what? To be attorneys? It's like, no, they want to go out there and actually like fight, and use for all those reasons. So I don't think it's on a Westeros side, it's unusual at all. Um, on the other side, like the Nine Penny Kings, it took a long time for George to give clues on what the Nine Penny Kings War was about. Like, was it all of the cities, or was it just these small groups of men? And in the end, it turned out to just be kind of this small groups of men. Um, and so, with their own little reasons, the fact that they were destroyed pretty easily kind of makes it like, what were they thinking? But for the most part, it kind of seems like it was like Nine Penny Kings in the end turned out to be like sellswords and pirates and Blackfires. Sellswords, pirates, and Blackfires like getting together and like trying to do something. And well, at that point, it's just about money and this long shot hope of trying to overthrow the kingdom. Now I understand that like maybe you're thinking about like, well, what about like secret Blackfires? Like in Westeros, why would they be willing to fight against Meleys the Monstrous and stuff like that, and the Golden Company, if they're actually like holding out hope for like the return of the line of Daemon Blackfire? I'm trying to think. The Blackfires. Yeah, I guess, yeah, Daemon Blackfire, he's introduced in A Storm of Swords as well. Um, so I mean, I don't know. We don't hear of all of the houses that went down. So maybe the Blackfire supporters just kind of stayed quiet and didn't go down there to fight. Um, the Ironwoods. Did the Ironwoods actually fight for the wrong side in that? I have to see. I have to go back because they kind of say like, I don't know if they even count Nine Penny Kings as a Blackfire rebellion. It's like up in the air, even though it's clearly a Blackfire rebellion. I mean, but they just don't name it a Blackfire rebellion like the other ones. So, I mean, I don't know if it's too much narrative convenience. I think it's pretty easy for all of these people to want to go fight, even if like, there's a few characters here. There's a few houses here and there that maybe don't want to fight Blackfires. You know. Mm-mm. Um. Oh, inshallah, Preston Jacobs finished tough voyaging. Your videos were great accompaniment to my understanding of it. Thank you, thank you. Of course, the Thousand Worlds Book Club, we did that long time ago, long time ago. But it's funny because at the time I'm like, nobody's watching these, but over time, because it's been so many years, they eventually did rack up a lot of views. Maybe some Avalon ideas were repurposed at a Sally Ice and Fire. I mean, almost certainly, but I just hope that in a general sense he would reveal at least the basic plot of it. Hopefully, who knows? Oh, Jerry curl mullets were prestige and yeah, I suppose you could see that if you get like, because once the hair gets long and it's people don't shower very much in olden times. You can get a lot of grease there. It could be like more the Jerry curl mullet. Um, Damphir. Oh, the human vampire hybrid, like from who used Damphir? The Damphir. Mythical creature. The union between a vampire and a human. When is this? When is this? I had no idea this was a thing. Um, Blade is a damn fear. Castlevania video games. Blood Rain. Huh. I had no idea. Um, the baby is the vessel, a sponge to put minds in. Yeah, I mean, I do think that, but like it's yeah, the collective, the collective. I mean, isn't you know? I mean, we can in an abstract sense, can't we think about that in general, of society in general, like our collective group, like we kind of, in a sense, human beings do have um, have some degree of like hive consciousness, not to the degree of Borg or anything like that, but like there is something that we do talk about, like zeitgeist and like the feelings of the society in general. We do have collective action. We people know about mob mentality, lynch mobs, infectious behavior of laughing at a movie, or clapping, or Zagoritz is the other one. Like in the Middle East, ululation um, is infectious in the same way that yawns and laughter are infectious. Like when people do it, everyone feels compelled to do it. It's really quite incredible. Um, Years ago, when I was living in Jordan, our administrative assistant, like, she won an award, and so we went to the award ceremony, and they did this like long ceremony, and like 40 people were getting awards, and then our woman goes up, and as a joke, I just kind of Zagarita. I go, and the whole room went, and I was like, whoa! Like it was incredible that like it was so infectious for people to do that. In the same way that, like, whatever, clapping and laughing is infectious, but Zagarita, ululation is infectious as well. But we've got, there is this like hive mentality. But so in a sense, like every time we have babies, it's the same thing. I mean, they are vessels for the consciousnesses of the society. It's just, George is making it more specific. Like, no, this is actually blended consciousness, like blended consciousness. Okay. All right. Um, uh, 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 Some people are trying to get into the spicy politics. Oh, Preston growing it out. Just lazy. I'll probably shave my head again soon. Yeah, what can you do? Um, have you seen Moon Mars's Renly Peach series? And if you did it influence the Stannis story in the fanfic? I have not seen Moon Man's Renly's Peach series. No, I'm sorry. But that's the thing, is sometimes I don't like to be like spoiled and influenced, about it. But yeah. Oh, hey, Preston, I'm a Marine. I know a lot of people that I was on active duty with that ducked out of deployment to Afghanistan. No, that's true. I think, like, also, like, once faced with it, um, especially fucking Afghanistan, that you'd not want to do that. Like, of course. I'm just saying, I find that opinion, like, oh, I'd like to go see some action, more common in Marines than anybody else. And granted, like, the year as well, like, Afghanistan was 20 years of that war. So, like, at what point in the war, like, and how people viewed it, and like, were the bad stories coming back of like, oh fuck, like this is the type of stuff you do, and it's pointless and hard and dangerous, and that's a lot different than having this like uh, of this excitement that we're gonna go out and I'm gonna you're gonna fight, and it's like, oh no, actually your patrol is like driving it as in between a canyon and maybe getting blown up by a improvised explosive device, and somebody picking you off from like a mountain as you drive in the valley. Like that's a lot different than oh, you're going out and you're using your skills, like that's just you're a sitting duck. um so yeah. Yeah, but I get it. I mean, people are different. Coast Guard is Homeland Security, not DoD, of course, but it's still a branch of the military. I mean, I understand that it's under Homeland, but it's still like one of the branches. Um, yeah, which that's the thing is when you're talking about like active military, like all of the government provided benefits for um, service and things like that, and hiring preference. I mean, all that applies to Coast Guard too. Um, Even though, yes, Coast Guard is part of Homeland rather than being DoD. That is true. Uh, uh, Yeah, that's definitely. Blade's mom was turned when he was in utero. Um, you know, Berserk with the boys. Like I say, Tuesday, Berserk with the boys. We do two episodes of um we do two. Fuck, I've totally forgotten the names, but it's the flashback when we go back in time. Um Oh, anything else you want me to ask George? I mean, if you can, like, you can ask, hey, what do the Harangan mines look like? Like, roughly, what do the Harangan mines look like? I think is a good question too. Because in the Thousand Worlds stories, like people refer to the Harangans, and you've got these different like slave races that you hear about, and we know what the Findi look like, and we know what Galactoids look like, but we don't really know what the Harangan mines look like. Like they just were said to be hiding underground, waiting. They're defeated. So I mean, some people suspect that they look like floating brains or something, but I kind of think just really like roughly what do the Harangan mines look like? Would just be like curious, I was, you getting the signature. I wanted to. I mean, I suppose you could ask him pretty like if you're fast, you could ask him like one right after the other. Like, what was Avalon about? And like, what do the Harangan mines look like? Those are the two that like Trey and I have been like talking about this, joking. Like, these would be the questions that we think that George could answer and would answer at this point. While he's very unwilling to answer stuff about A Song of Ice and Fire, and a lot of the other questions that people ask, we've heard them asked a million times before. So like, and then if you get too specific about Thousand Worlds, he's going to say, or anything else. If you ask him about the skin trade or for something skin trade, he's gonna have forgotten. So like, it's got to be something really like important and general. Like, he's not going to have forgotten what Avalon was supposed to be about, and he shouldn't have forgotten what the Harangan mines looked like. And so it's like it's trying to like head it off, like for the end, because if you ask a specific Ice and Fire question, he's going to be like, I can't tell you that. Keep reading, or he could say, I don't remember if it's something too specific. But if it's something like, what's Avalon about and what do the Harangan mines look like, I think he can't claim he forgot those. And it's not that revealing. So I think it's a good shot before he We'll see. But thank you, Blake. Thank you if you have your chance to see him. I feel like some people say that like um, once George wrote on his blog, um, he had mentioned at some point on his blog that it's like most people ask him about Ice and Fire, but he's like sometimes people ask me about Thousand Worlds, and everyone's like that's totally pressed. like I do wonder how many Thousand World fans there'd be in the world if I hadn't been like shouting out like it for so long. Freshman at Big State Uni. Advice? Love the fanfic. Oh, geez. Um, hmm. Advice for a freshman. Okay. Things that I like honestly, the big mistakes I made my freshman year. Okay. Don't have early classes. Like don't like my father said, "Oh, you should probably have some early classes to get you out of bed so you're like motivated. You don't want to like sleep all day." Worst idea. Worst idea. Cuz I was going out on weekdays for the first time ever as a freshman, and I couldn't make it to the classes, and I was missing all of my classes. And sometimes I'd be like, fine, I'm just going to stay up all night. I'd get back, and then I'd be like, I'll stay up all night and do the homework and then hand it in and at my 8 a.m. class. And it was horrible. The quality of what I was putting out by staying up all night was disastrous. Don't don't have any early morning classes. Like just don't do it. Because what's going to happen is you're going to have a new social life that you've never experienced before. And it's going to take you some time, at least a year, to relate to that. Um, the To relate to that, like and like take in that. I'm sorry, to like adjust your life to that. Now, certainly by my junior year and my senior year, like I had adjusted to the new social life and I could start doing like work and everything and understanding. But like, man, oh man, like as a freshman, I just couldn't handle it. Like I couldn't handle like the workload and the social life at the same time. Like I just wasn't doing that kind of socialization when I was in high school, like where you're just like going out on a Thursday night and drinking, going out on a Tuesday night and drinking, and having your friends are going to be like, you need to drink, and so you're getting wasted on a Tuesday, wasted on a Thursday, and expected to wake up for a class. Don't do it. So that's the big thing. Um, when you when you arrive, like if you're at a big uni, there's also a difference of like, um, I don't know, like the mistakes about hooking up. Like a lot of times, like early in your freshman year, you'll get drunk and like carelessly hook up with people, and then you're having classes with them, like your sophomore, junior, senior year, and you're just like, oh, this is embarrassing. Um, if you go to a huge university, that's not a problem. You're not running into them. But if you're at a small university, it gets really embarrassing if you make mistakes like that, where you're like try not to like just hook up with any random person because you're gonna have a class with them later. But if you're at a big state uni, yeah, do whatever you want. Like you're not gonna run into them again. It's like endless supply of people. It's a very different mentality. Um, but I don't know. Let's see what else is really good. I mean, I would say I don't know. Some people say try to find your major fast, but I don't think it's. I don't know. I thought it was great to like not have my major until my sophomore year and like figure out what I really wanted to do. Just like take like your common core classes or whatever your freshman year. Try to have a light load of classes your freshman year. I did a full load and light loads at the end. And probably I wasn't mature enough. I think in the end, like you should start off with the light load because that socialization is going to be there and you don't really know what you're into and stuff like that. So I don't know, just take common core classes at the beginning, figure out what you want to do by your sophomore year. And then like I said, no early morning, no early morning, and maybe be a little more discerning in the beginning on who you're hooking up with. By senior year, because you're not going to see these people again, you can do whatever the fuck you want. But like, like when are you going to run into these people at a fucking reunion? Like, no, like, but freshman year, try not to just be the drunken idiot who is making an ass of themselves at the beginning. Like, just try not to make an ass of yourself in the very beginning because you're gonna have these people in classes later on. That's all. But congratulations. It's gonna be a fun time. I guarantee. Oh God. Oh, Ken M. Oh, jeez. No, Jorah is not gonna have a happy ending. Jorah's a dickhead. He's the Harangan mines were the werewoods. That's the thing, man. I know. That's the thing. Is the Harangan mines probably were the werewoods. Judge should have threatened succession and releasing Theon when Ned was arrested, and done both if Ned was still executed instead of waging war. Now keep in mind that like Rob's biggest mistake obviously was releasing Theon. Cat specifically tells him not to do it, but he is 100% convinced that Theon is his friend. And at the time, like Theon believes it too. Like Theon begins not wanting to betray his friend, and then the feelings of his family and father, like the way Asha and Balon treat him once he gets to the Iron Isles, and how they twist him and make him feel insecure and not Ironborn enough, and all of that, like shift his character. So I mean, Theon was easy to believe because like Theon was honest. Like at the time, Theon was like honest in that he didn't want to betray Robb, and then he was convinced into betraying Robb. So Robb's greatest mistake was not listening to Cat's advice and sending Theon back to the Iron Isles. I mean, even though that Theon's plan to take Casterly Rock, probably a better plan than trying to take the North. But oh well. Yeah, I mean, using it as a threat instead of release Ned, or else we have secession. I still don't think Tywin would have accepted it. He would have been like, "Bring it." Tywin is so reckless and headstrong and proud. Like people think Tywin is this like calculating guy. He's pretty reckless. And so somebody's saying like, "Oh, I'm going to secede," and he's like, "Well, fuck, you're going to die. We're going to declare war on you." And that's the other thing is like, would that have changed anything anyway? Because Ned wasn't going to be executed. Like when Ned was arrested and said that, say they threatened secession, they still want Ned to like confess in front of everyone. And so Joffrey was still going to execute him no matter what, So it kind of doesn't matter in that sense that like, I admit that like these are better moves than what Robb did. What Robb did was ridiculous. Like he screwed up. Should have listened to his mom. but I don't know how much it would have helped because like Joffrey is going to execute Ned no matter what. Um, and you know, is is once Theon goes to the Iron Islands, I think it's all over too. So ugh, that's the thing. Just just don't release Theon. Don't release Theon. Ugh. Actually, Jorah having a happy ending at the end of book 7 um, would be the ultimate trope subversion. I have an interesting little story on an interesting thing on what I'm going to do with Jorah, but keep in mind that the Jorah is he's going to meet Gilly. He's going to meet Gilly, and there Gilly's going to tell him about um, Gior's last request, and so he's going to have some interesting adventures after that. What's Avalon? Avalon is George R. R. Martin had a was writing a book in a universe that he invented before the A Song of Ice and Fire universe, called the Thousand Worlds universe, and he wrote about 26 stories in the Thousand Worlds universe, and a book called Dying of the Light. And he was going to write a full-length novel taking place in this universe because his career in Hollywood wasn't going that well after Beauty and the Beast was canceled. And he got like 150 pages into it, and then he decided to stop writing it and start writing A Song of Ice and Fire. He had this new idea, and then he got 300 pages into writing A Song of Ice and Fire, and then he stopped that to try to do because his career in Hollywood like woke up again, and they're like, oh, we want this Doorways show, and he spent 2 years doing that, and then trying to cut, and then came back and finished a Game of Thrones and continued on. But Avalon was just it was going to be a sci-fi book taking place on the planet of Avalon, which is Avalon. From what we know in the Thousand Worlds universe, Avalon was the only planet that didn't have. I'm sorry. Avalon and Prometheus were the only ones that didn't have an interregnum, so their technology was still good. Versus like the rest of the galaxy after the Double War, like fell into technological dark ages and took a while to come back. Avalon like had never fallen, so they have like super high technology, but we don't really know what was really going on Avalon, or what stories could be there. I've met Mormon missionaries and they're very nice. How should I hang out with them to practice English without being an annoying atheist? Oh, I mean, this is a funny thing. So when I lived in China, there were all sorts of Chinese people like our age. I was young when I was in China. I was probably I was 20, 22, 23 years old when I after college I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, so I went to China, and so I was in Shanghai, and so you have a bunch of like you're in a young social group. We're still hanging out with like university students and things like that, and so like the Chinese university students are there, and a lot of times they want to hang out with you because we call them the English leeches, where like they're not very interesting. They don't you sense they don't really like you, but they keep wanting to hang out with you because they just want to practice their English. So we call them the English leeches because you're like like they don't really share your interests or anything like that. They don't, but they still want to hang out. So it's kind of a funny thing to hear about it in another way but have it with Mormons. Here's the thing: is like I don't know, like how can you hang out with them without being an annoying atheist? See, the thing about Mormons is they don't drink, they don't use caffeine. Um, so you can't get coffee with them, and you can't get a beer with them. Um, I'm sure you can do things like you could probably like play sports with them or whatever. Um, but then how much English are you learning on the field of soccer? What I would do if you want to not be if you want to learn English with them, but you've got to do something like a game night, like board games, and you have to like invite them to board games, and then you know they're going to want to bring up religion because it's their job to try to convert you. But you just want to play the board games or something and talk about anything to try to learn English. Um, yeah, it's hard because you're gonna be if they bring up stuff, you're gonna like all of a sudden be like, yeah, I don't really believe that. And they're gonna be like, but why, And then all of a sudden you're having a debate, right? How long can that debate go? But I don't know. I'd have like board game nights, man. I think that's the thing. Do a board game night, have them over, play whatever, play Secret Hitler or Code Words or Settlers of Catan, whatever you want. That way you can hang out with them, learn some English. They're having fun. They're playing board games. Board games are fun. Everybody likes board games. Everybody wants to play board games. That way they're getting something out of it. They're having a fun evening playing board games at least. But I think it's about the only way you can hang out with them. I don't know what else you do. Because if you're playing sports, you're not learning very much language, and they don't drink or get coffee or anything like that. So, board game night, man, board game night. Yeah. Um. Oh, if hold the door happens in the book, how's he going to get back to the wall? Well, the idea is that in the books, the sinkhole is pretty far from is the idea. So the sinkhole is pretty far from the main door, and the idea is if Bran can climb out of the sinkhole, get pulled out of the sinkhole, the whites and others are at the bottom. So they get a pretty good head start. Like they don't need to get picked up by Uncle Benjen or whatever. Or they have a several mile head start. I'm trying to what did the book say about the back door? I'm trying to get the 3 leagues north. 3 leagues. That's 9 miles, you know. So that's a pretty good distance, right? Yeah. 3 leagues is 10 miles. So that's 16 clicks. So we've got like 16 clicks, 16 click head start on like zombies, I think that's pretty good. So then plus they don't know where he is. They would have to like track him or something, I don't even know how they caught up with Sam. Like how did the others know where he was? But so I think like they can, if they get on the big fucking deer or they find a horse, or I don't know, can you ride a dire wolf? You could ride a dire wolf or something. You can get back. But it's a pretty good head start, Would cryptology be a big part of Citadel Ravencraft? So in the fanfic, we give the White Ravens a secret language that they can communicate with so that the maesters can send messages, and then also like you could, if you, the idea is if you cover a white raven in soot, you can also like get longer messages, if you wanted secretly, because the white ravens can fly from castle to castle. So yeah, should cryptology be a big part of like figuring things out? Maybe. The only thing, like the only cryptology I'm thinking about here is um, the note between Lysa and Cat. So it's established in a Game of Thrones that Lysa and Cat have a secret language that they can read, that they can communicate to each other in. And the thing is like, okay, say Luwin, because Luwin gets the message first. Say Luwin read Lysa's message and he knew he decoded it because he's good in cryptology. He knew the message before he gave it to Catelyn. But the thing is Catelyn tells him what's in the message immediately. Like she reads it and then she's like, oh, and this is what it says. And so if Maester Luwin did like decode the message, like it didn't matter because Cat just told him what the message was right afterwards. He's like, fuck, I just wasted like 3 hours decoding that message. Cat just told him. But there's nowhere else in the story where there's a secret code that we know of. Like I always wondered if there was one in the Pink Letter, and I spent a lot of time like looking at the Pink Letter with crossed eyes, like trying to figure out like what it could be. But nothing ever came, because I was like, what if you count like every seventh word? What if this? What if this word signals? Like, what can we get? And I couldn't figure anything out. So, but nonetheless, certainly in the fanfic we have their secret Raven code. I do kind of want to bring back Lysa and Cat's secret language, but I don't know how. Like Lysa's dead, and Cat is dead too. Like wow, like what would what could be introduced that would be really important, that would be in their secret language? I don't know, but it'd be fun. It'd be funny. I don't know how to bring it back. If anyone has an idea, like a good idea on how to bring back Lysa and Cat's secret language, that would be something, Maybe Littlefinger knows it. Maybe Lysa taught Littlefinger the language, but, don't ever hook up with people your roommate knows. There's a great Onion article that's entitled "Any Friend of Yours is a Potential Hookup of Mine." And it is hilarious because everyone knows that guy. You will have a friend who will try to sleep with every female friend you have and make it awkward for your friendships with female friends, because you will have that one friend that ruins it. This happened the other day with Trey and Carmine. Like my screen behind froze, and the only way I fixed it was by redoing this back. There we go. Okay. Da, da. 8 a.m. calculus freshman year, biggest mistake in my life. Yes, absolutely. Have you ever played Warhammer 40K? I have played it. I know a bit about it, but it's like way too intense for me. I used to play something that was a spin-off called Space Hulk, and I played some of the video games related to it, but so I occasionally make jokes about gene stealers and gene stealer cults. But would Balon and Tywin risk invading a north with all of its manpower still at home after seceding? Um, um, let's see. So Balon is going to attack the north, um, pretty much no matter what. Like he's, his revenge. He's going to get his revenge. Like the minute Theon is back in his hands, it's all over. And so that's kind of because some people are like Balon's plan is stupid. It is stupid. Balon's plan is reckless and stupid. Um, there's no way he could hold the North. His whole plan is maybe, I mean, part one of his plan is sound. Take Deepwood Mott. Okay, Deepwood, not yeah. Take Deepwood Mott. Not Deepwood Mott. Take Moat Cailin. Take Moat Cailin, and that's the key militarily. It's so incredibly important. Yes, absolutely. Take Moat Cailin. Great. That's step one. Step two. Like what? What are you gonna do? Like, what's the hope here? The hope is maybe like attacking and having the North cede you some land, or maybe have Tywin cede you some land. But if anyone knows Tywin Lannister, he doesn't do that. And so they even say like, oh, maybe we could team up with Balon. And Tywin's like, why? Why? He's doing this for free, and he wants land, and I don't want to give it up. I don't want to give away half the kingdom. So Balon's plan is stupid. But and he's going to do it because he's reckless, and he needs to have his revenge for his for losing the Greyjoy rebellion. Now, would Tywin risk invading the North? No. Tywin, like, invading the North is incredibly difficult, especially if they hold Moat Cailin. But here's the big problem. And the big problem with Robb's move in general of rising up is that the Riverlands join him. And his kingdom is the Riverlands and the North. If he had said, fuck the Riverlands, you're not part of my kingdom, like that would have been a very different world. And had he retreated behind Moat Cailin and said, I'm independent, sorry, Riverlands, bye-bye, that would have been a very different world. But then they would have been like kidnapping like all of the Tully household and trying to use that against him and things like that. So he's got this huge problem in that he's half Tully, and that his mom's a Tully and his uncle's a Tully. Like, that's just brutal for Robb. It's brutal for Robb. Because had it simply been, you killed my dad, you've arrested my dad, fine. We're going to be our own kingdom, shutting ourselves off. Then it would have been great. Then he would have been fine. Like that would have been a sound military strategy. But the problem is that he's half Tully, and they're gonna harass his relatives. So what he needed to do is send a message to the Tullys saying, renounce me, bend the knee to Joffrey, sorry guys. Like, maybe that would have worked, and the Tullys would have all had to like bend the knee and be like, sorry, it's okay that you harried our lands, we renounce Catelyn. Like, maybe that would have worked. It's a lot of what ifs, but but yeah, no, Balon would have risked anything because Balon's an idiot. Balon, and Tywin is very bold, and he doesn't want to be disrespected. But I think that does end at the point of trying to take the North, which is impossible. Would Tywin have, then tried to send letters and convince everyone in the North to turn against Rob, maybe, something like that. I don't think it would have necessarily worked at that point, but, um, you know, Rob's in an unwinnable kind of situation. Really, he should not have. The Riverlands are undefendable. You can't win with the Riverlands. It's just yes. I mean, I do agree that Balon Greyjoy he's one of the dumbest characters. Do Mormons blaze? No, no. Mormons do nothing. They're big on splits. True. How to hang out with Mormons without being annoying? Convert. It's true. Oh God. The shooter was a Mormon, right? Um, from what I heard, maybe I'm wrong. There's so much misinformation going around. Every Mormon missionary girl on my campus was a cute girl. True, but they all look the same. They're all from the same stock. Like it's the same family. That's why they all look cute. It's the same girl. It's the same blonde. It's the same blonde, faceless like girl. But that's how they get you. How fast are fire whites? Not as fast as the hound. That's how fast. How fast are ravens? Generally speaking, I think they can get across like the kingdom in like 1 or 2 days, like east to west in 1 or 2 days. It might take them like 2 or 3 if they're trying to get from the south to the north. But people seem to be getting seem to get messages pretty fast. And just going on like the speeds of like how fast ravens fly, that all kind of like makes sense, you know. Pig letter says drink more Ovaltine. That's from the Christmas Story. Yeah, someone finds an old letter with their language. Yeah, maybe. Sleep with that pro move. Sleep with the friend first, so your friend can't sleep with your female friends. Yeah, it's true, but I mean, it's a little hypocritical because I'm like, female friends are really useful because they have friends. But then you're like, oh wait, you're being now that annoying friend. Maybe cat. Stone. Oh, the could use the language to communicate with Brynden. But when did unfortunately Brynden didn't use the doesn't know the language. Um, but yeah, I mean, at some point, maybe Littlefinger knows it though. I could see Littlefinger knowing the language and like just spending the time to figure it out, because he's like creepy and obsessive. Like that would be kind of interesting. That all of a sudden, like, um, he writes, like say Littlefinger. I mean, say Littlefinger meets Lady Stoneheart at some point. Can he like write the language to her in secret? Like, what would be the function of it? Would Brynden know the language? I don't know. An old letter. Then what would the old letter reveal? See, it's like we kind of think that we know all of Lysa's secrets. Is there one more secret that Lysa could reveal? Like, is there anything that really is, because we know about her forced abortion. We know about um, her raping Littlefinger. We know, like what last little thing could there be? Does she actually have like a secret will? In the event of my murder, Kat, this is what. But she already thinks Kat's dead. Does she think Kat's dead? Yeah, 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 yeah. She definitely thinks Kat. She definitely knows Kat's dead when she dies. Space Hulk was on floppy disks. Probably. I think it was still. Oh, these crazy ones. Uh Preston, how do you square everyone being like, "Oh, political violence is never the answer," with every year celebrating a politically violent uprising every 4th of July? I mean, it. I do think that it's a very uh, silly thing. Like, look, you can say that violence, just say violence is never acceptable, and you're in the same situation, right? Because obviously, all wars are political violence. Like, it's like every war is political violence. Like, so to be like political violence is never acceptable, you're like, well, what you really mean is that, like, okay, according to the Geneva Convention, like there are certain acceptable like terms of war that need to be practiced, and this is not it. But like the phrase political violence isn't the answer is not really accurate. You have to be like, what I mean is I want to abide by the Geneva Convention, and I don't believe in things like assassinations and terrorism. Um, Unfortunately, governments participate in those things too. Um, and governments violate the Geneva Convention constantly. So it's tough. So, but the, it's, but it's, yeah, no, it's, look, I'm against violence. I'm against violence in general. So I don't need to like preface it with anything. Like, violence is often political. War is political. Like, it's um you know, so it's I always felt I always think there's a lot of things with this week where I'm just like, man, the world is stupid. The world's really fucking stupid. But would Stannis forcibly convert people if he won? That is a interesting question, because he forcibly converts the wildlings, but he kind of thinks that the wildlings are lesser. I mean, the idea is that like Stannis would forcibly convert people if he thought it was advantageous to him and that it was easy. Like if the whole kingdom, if he realized that the whole kingdom would not stand for that and that they would rise up against him, no, he's not going to do it. Like Stannis is, he's too, he's going to do what he's capable of doing. Like he was capable of demanding that all of the wildlings that go through the wall submit and convert. That's all fine, you know. But he didn't do it to the Northmen when he ran into them. He realized that he had to go on the fence because he was in a weak position. So I think it's the same thing. Like you'd run into you'd be in the situation where he's like, well, I can't really force everybody to convert. Like that's just not politically feasible. So I don't think he'd be able to do it. Yeah. Could Lysa have told the Blackfish the language in secret? I suppose. She doesn't. Lysa doesn't have that much crossover time with the Blackfish, surprisingly enough, because essentially the Blackfish leaves to go live with her, but then she has to go to King's Landing to with Jon Arryn, and then maybe she could visit and such. But then when she comes back, he's there. But Blackfish like doesn't actually cross over with her that much. He's going to cross over a little bit, like when Lysa first gets married and before Jon Arryn goes down to King's Landing to be hand, and then he's going to cross over with her when she flees King's Landing. 15 years later, 14 years later, I guess I guess that's about I'm trying to think about the amount of time between her fleeing and Cat coming. It's a fair amount of time. I guess that's about 6 months probably. So maybe they have 6 months in the 6 months. Maybe she could tell him. I don't know. It could be. Uh, mm, Sweet Robin's gonna skin change into Harold's horse and kill him. Well, we kind of had a mysterious situation in the fanfic. We're not quite sure how it happened, at all. Um, yeah, American politicians sign bombs. Political violence is literally state sponsored. Yeah, of course. But what is terrorism? Terrorism, by definition, um, is using the threat of violence, using violence or the threat of violence to push a political agenda. That is what terrorism is. Um, so, you know, so one could argue that, like, okay, um, wouldn't say the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki be terrorism, right? Because you're killing people, you're doing violence in order to threaten, right? For that purpose. Um, and you could say, well, yeah, that's terrorism. It's mainly we're talking about, like, you're attacking civilian targets, and then it starts going more, because then people are like, okay, well, what if you do an attack against a military target? And then you're like, well, is it a declared war? It starts getting complicated. Are you a state? It starts getting into this thing where it's like, well, you have to be a state in a declared war in order for, and have it be a military target. And, all of these little things, or it starts getting to be terrorism. But, I would argue that Hiroshima and Nagasaki completely fit the bill of terrorism. These were civilian targets. You were killing civilians for political advancement of political ends. So I would argue that Hiroshima and Nagasaki were terrorism, fits the definition of terrorism. But then people say, like, is the bombing of, like, the USS Cole, is that considered? Because this group had declared war against the United States long ago. These terrorist groups, like, so you start getting these, like, mushy areas on, like, what terrorism is. But for the most part, targeting civilians to advance, threatening or killing civilians to advance a political goal. I mean, that's the thing, is, like, self-defense is justified. Like, almost everyone agrees that self-defense is justified violence, right? So there is justified violence, right? So, and you could be defending yourself against a political attack, and so therefore it's still political violence. Like, violence is often political, so it's really silly to be like, political violence isn't. By the way, I don't even think that. Here's the big thing. I'll jump to, like, to this week, which I think I think, despicable. Like, American media and Americans are just fucking idiots and despicable. Okay, because first of all, I want to talk about, like, assassinations, right? When assassination happens, most of the time there is no clear motive. Most of the time the person is a fucking loon, and it makes no fucking sense at all. Okay. And what I find amazing is that everyone forgets this. Everyone forgets this every fucking time. They're like, oh my God, why was JFK assassinated? Have you like, no one knows. Like, they're like, Lee Harvey Oswald, he was, like, a Marxist. And so why is he killing JFK? Which leads to the conspiracy theories. Like, they're like, well, Lee Harvey Oswald had no clear motives. No, he was a fucking loon. If you ever saw any interviews with him, and if you looked at his life and you read anything, like, he was crazy as fuck. He didn't need a motive. He was nuts. Why was Reagan shot? Like, because some guy watched Taxi Driver and was in love with Jodie Foster. Like, Why was Trump shot? Like, most of the time, there's no fucking, there's either no like motive or no like clear, like no motive that makes any sense. So I find it fucking despicable that like that this can happen, and immediately everyone's like, this is why it was done. The kind, most likely, the most probable situation is the kid is a fucking loon, and his motive does not make any fucking sense. And so far, all we're getting is a bunch of fucking weird memes. Like, maybe in the end they'll find out he was a groiper. I don't know. Maybe in the end they'll figure out that he was converted from this far right family to be a leftist. Maybe. Who knows? But right now it looks like he was a fucking loon. Okay? Like, just like most of the fucking time. And so the fact that all of these people like can jump on Twitter and be like, this is war, the leftists did this, the left, like, oh my God, you fucking idiots. Like, every fucking time it's a loon. Every fucking time it's a crazy person with no fucking like motive that makes any sense. And are these people ever going to fucking apologize? No. Are all these people that like said, war, we need to retaliate, are they going to apologize? No. They're all the biggest fucking cowards because they'll sit there and say war and they'll never do fucking anything. So, I mean, there's, you know, my thing on that. It's just like, it's so dumb. And it's so dumb that we forget it every time. Like, you know, the police are still searching for a motive. Most of the time, there's no motive. Most of the time, there's no motive. Just fucking accept it. Like, oh God. And the fucking whitewashing of, and let's be very clear here, the world is a better place without Charlie Kirk. Okay? That guy was a fucking ghoul who promoted violence constantly. A fucking horrible ghoul. Okay, that guy, the world is much better with him gone. I feel super bad for his daughters. You know, but man, what a horrible human being that guy was. Thank goodness he is out of this world. Now, again, I do not support violence, you know, but man, let's not whitewash anything here. That guy was a piece of shit, and the world is a much better place without him. Okay. And again, violence is bad. I do not agree with any violence. But the world is a better place without him. And there was probably no motive at all. This was probably a crazy person. Okay. So I don't think he was a groiper. I don't think he was a leftist. I think he was just fucking nuts. Yeah. Like most of the time. That's probably the situation. Are we at 100% that Tormund is dead in the fanfic? Or is there even a sliver of a chance? Even a 0.0001 that there's some type of misdirect with Mance or Davos? I mean, unless he's somehow a skin changer and he's living a second life in somebody else, you know, that's the idea. I mean, we have Morna White Mask making the jokes about him being swapped out for a goat, and that there was maybe I mean, you'd have to do another one of the glamour situations with Mel and have him back, and that the person that died in the Shield Hall was glamored or something. But I know people love their fucking Tormund, but there's no room for him. There's no room for him. There's too many characters in the North, and we have to go on. I know everybody likes it, but here's the other thing. Look, this is just like comic books. When a hero dies, okay, there's two ways they bring him back, right? They bring him back either through he didn't really die, he got resurrected, whatever. Or they just have somebody else fucking become Green Goblin 2, Green Goblin 3, Thunderbird 2, Thunderbird 3. Like, there can be another character like Tormund's like not all of Tormund's family died. Like his sons are still alive. Like not Toreg, but like his sons can be exactly like him, and they can be talking about their members all day long, and you'll be happy. Okay, his sons are still there. Okay, so don't worry if you want dick jokes. We got your fucking dick jokes. Okay, so it's fine. It's fine. Um, yeah, as the follow up was the decision to kill him off based on the difficulty in writing such a quick witted character like Tyrion. I don't think Tormund is very quick witted. I think his jokes are lame. They're just dick jokes. But the decision to kill him off was purely that. Look, it's seeded that there could be a red wedding situation with the Shield Hall. The Shield Hall was a fire trap. They're all trapped in the Shield Hall. You know, you're looking at ways in which the knights, the mutineers could possibly win. And so, yeah, burning down the Shield Hall seems logical. And so, like, if Tormund wasn't in there, it would be very obvious armor for him, like plot armor for him. And he was in there. You know, like, what am I supposed to, if just he escaped, everyone would be like, oh, come on, plot armor, right? Okay, maybe I could have him survive with like massive burns. You're like, oh God, like, you know, what's the point? So I understand people really upset that I killed Tormund. I killed him off screen, but we killed Balon. Balon was killed off screen. You know, everybody loved Balon. But yeah, he was in the wrong place at the wrong time. He was in the wrong place at the wrong time in the story, and I had to have a somewhat logical way to like resolve that. You know, and so he was killed. I mean, it's not like I had Kyleg Wooden Ear like survive because I liked that character. I wish he would have burned up, but he wasn't mentioned by when Jon like named everyone in the Shield Hall. It was purely that the Shield Hall was gonna burn and he was in it. And so that's the way it had to go. Renly's recklessness makes sense when you remember he's basically a college-age bro. Oh, that's kind of true. Yeah, Renly is like 10 years younger than Stannis. I'm trying to forget I'll bring up the exact age. God. He's actually more. He's 277, so that means War of the Five Kings is like 299. He's 22 years old. Yeah, that's pretty rough. It's true. It's pretty reckless. It's a good point. But yeah, some people are like, why didn't Renly follow Stannis? And his whole theory is it's true that it's like, it's a bit weird in the sense that he's like, nobody likes Stannis. So like the realm isn't going to like get behind him because everybody hates him. But in practice, people get behind Stannis fine. You know, like it's, you know, like he gets some wildlings and some hill clans and all these. A lot of people really do like Stannis, you know, but Renly's just being an opportunist as well, I think. But you're right that maybe being 22 is an excuse for it. That he was just young and dumb, and was like, "Hey, I can be king." Power hungry. Oh, the hearing the American years of lead paint. Yeah, this must be it. People talk about it with COVID. They're like, "Oh, this lost generation of COVID." Yeah, why was this huge news? It's huge news because the right wing media But I mean, the media in America is all right wing now. I mean, the same day there was a mass shooting in Colorado by some like far right wingers. It's but also it's a little bit of you know, when the shooter is missing and stuff like that, it like generates like there's a manhunt, and a manhunt is exciting. So I think like the minute the shooter was caught, they kind of dropped off. I mean, it was the same with the killing of the health executive in New York. Like that got a lot more news. That got a lot more attention than it probably should have in the media cycle, because the manhunt is an exciting thing. You're like, oh, is he going to get away? Are they going to catch the guy? How are they going to catch the guy? In the end, his dad turned him in, which is really dark, right? Like he, they're gonna seek the death penalty on the kid, and like his dad turned him in. Like, I mean, once you kind of look at the the um the story of his life, I guess it makes a little more sense. But it's like the kid apparently did pretty well in high school. He was like get a pretty good student, pretty good, and then he went to like for some reason, even though he did pretty well in high school, he went to like a, a fairly shitty college and then dropped out, and then moved back in with his parents to like try to learn to be an electrician or something. And so some people wonder if he got like internet poisoned at that point, but at the same time it sounds like he was losing his mind. He was kind of nuts and needed the care of his family. So like if your crazy son kills somebody, you know, that's a little different than I don't know, other situations. Like there's kind of no hope for him anyway. Like it's not like if you help your son escape, he's going to be living a fine dandy life. Like, you know, he's kind of nuts and lost. So maybe that was part of it, but what a fucking dark situation to be like, oh God, turn in my son who's then going to get death penalty. Um, mm, mm. Let's see. What is what this dark herb guy screaming bald over and over again? I guess, Jesus, what a weirdo. um, oh, this is great. I mean, whoever he was, man, he seems to. Uh, 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 he's a griper. I mean, we'll see if he's a griper. Like I say, it's still out, but I'm saying the probable situation is that the guy is just fucking nuts. I mean, the guy, does it take to don't you kind of have to be kind of nuts to be a griper? Um, Tormund's son's talking about his father's dick. Tormund, I'm just jealous of Tormund's member. Boo. I know, I know, I know. Um, oh, do you think the Green Goblin's pubes look like their hair? Absolutely. There's this weird, there's this weird like, yeah, it's like the Marvel hair on Norman Osborn and Harry Osborn is always kind of funny. Um, but you see it of like in the old timey. Oh, they changed it over the years. I didn't realize. But I always thought it was weird back in the days too. But here's a good example. Here's Norman. Here's Harry Osborn's hair. But it's like they kind of it's like kind of like I guess it's supposed to be like a curly um like a wavy hair that they've like taken back into like pulled back to slick back but still curvy. I mean, it's just so weird that they eventually had him having an affair with Gwen Stacy. Just weird. When Gwen Stacy was a high school student. Um, how do I like my Dominican Coca-Cola? I think it's the same. They use corn syrup here. It's not like Mexican Coke with sugar cane. It's just corn syrup here. Yeah. So it's not right? Oh no, wait. Shit. I didn't notice this. No, I'm wrong, man. Um they don't use corn syrup, they use beet sugar. It's just regular sugar here. No, I can't tell the difference. I cannot. I mean, like definitely a Mexican Coke tastes different with the sugar cane, but it might also be the glass bottle, you know. But like here, it's just sugar, regular sugar beet. I imagine it's not cane sugar, it's sugar beet, but like it's just there. That's weird. What's odd is that like cane sugar is really popular here for their coffees and everything. I mean, there's stacks and stacks of it. Why would they just use? I mean, I'm assuming that the azúcar is beet sugar, or else they would have said cane sugar. Fuck. Now I have to research this. Um, do they use beet sugar or cane sugar? They have a whole sugar industry. Huh. No, I'm wrong again here. All of the sugar that they produce in this country is from cane. Um, and I really don't notice the taste difference here, surprisingly enough. I think the Mexican Coke is probably the glass. like it's a mental thing because you're drinking it from a glass bottle. I know I can't take like man, William, you've blown my mind today. I've been drinking this for a year, and I'm like not thinking about like the difference. And I was like, oh, it's actually been made with cane sugar the whole fucking time, rather than sugar beet or corn syrup. And I haven't really tasted the difference, or at least I didn't know. Oh, maybe. God damn it! Now I have to like try them side by side. I have to bring into the country like a corn syrup one and then like taste them side by side and try to figure it out. Mm. Um, People forget Renly groomed Loras. That's true. That's true. But yeah, there's no but here. I understand that like age of consent is different and everything in this. And Loras is a man grown at 16, stuff like this. But yes, by our modern standards, it's gross. It's gross because Loras is a bit younger. Um, America still having the death penalty is hard to believe, honestly. Yeah, it's pretty gross. It's pretty disgusting. It's also like, and the way I see it, like, um, I think when I was younger, I mean, I'm against the death penalty. I think we should definitely get rid of it in America. I think it's a big waste of time. I think it's a waste of money. Um, I think when I was younger, I didn't care too much because I was like, life in prison versus execution. What's the difference? Um, Years later, I had a friend convince me. He argued that for the most part, we produce, like, as a society, we produce these individuals and what they do, and we benefit and live off of like this whole system, and that it's our responsibility to keep them alive if we made them. That executing them is you're trying to have your cake and eat it too. And I found his argument very compelling at the time, and ever since then I've I've been against the death penalty. He convinced me. Um, and I just also think it's it's dumb in the sense that, like, we don't really execute that many people in America every year. Like, it's like 100 people, right? Is it even that many? I'm looking this up. It's Yeah, it's not uniform. So yeah, okay. Actually, we're way down now. The executions in the US have dropped to like 20. But when I was young, it was like 100, right? So like there was 98 in 1999 or something. That was like the top. Okay, so I'm way off. We execute like 20 people a year. It's hardly anything. So like, why have it at all? Like, Europeans really disrespect us. I mean, we now have a lot of reasons to be disrespected, but it's just like one of those easy things that it's just like, why, like, it's just so easy. Like, why not just not execute 20 people and be fine? Like, we'll be fine. Like, if we got rid of it, everything would be the same. It's not like crime would suddenly break out. People are like, oh my gosh, there's no death penalty anymore. Woohoo! Like, might as well. Like, it's such an easy step to getting more respect that we might as well do it. I mean, there's lots of things that are very difficult to do. Like, for instance, like getting rid of guns in America, which I believe we should. I think guns should be banned in America. But I recognize that that's a fucking very difficult thing, very difficult politically, very difficult logistically. Getting rid of the death penalty, pretty easy politically. Not that many people are fucking crazy about it. And very easy logistically. You just stop. Like, it's that easy. So I don't know why it's really fucking stupid. It's just, it's just fucking get rid of it. Yeah. Rob was a high schooler, head of a government. Absolutely. And I think it's supposed to be, you're obviously supposed to think this, that Rob is, um, George sets it up pretty well too. Cause you get that Rob's young, and then you get all of these, even though Catelyn gives all this great advice, but at the same time, on the other hand, through Catelyn's perspective, she's still a mother. So the whole time she's just like, she's admiring her son, and she's like, oh, he's such an adult now, and he's come so far. Like, she has all of this like motherly love for him. And so we, the audience, start seeing Rob through Catelyn's eyes, and we're like, he's gonna make such a great king, and he's made some, really powerful, manly decisions. And it's like, no, he didn't. He's just a fucking stupid boy. He's a fucking stupid boy that should have listened to his mom, who was much smarter than him. So it's one of those things that's done very well by George, like how people, and I actually think that the show through miscasting, like destroys that aspect of the story. Like I understand it's the early seasons of Game of Thrones. It's the good seasons, you know? But man, is Rob a different character, you know? Had you actually imagine if you had actually cast like a young looking kid, like cast the kid that played, you know, Elmo Tully from A House of the Dragon or whatever. Who, I mean, he's actually much older, but he looks like a tiny little boy, right? Imagine if he was the fucking was Rob Stark. You would have actually like showed that story of oh right, he's a kid, you know. He can pretend he can play adult as much as he wants, but it would have been fun to see that. But yeah. Mm-mm-mm. I think see these are also like everything like the people as human beings like we want to find like order to it, you know, and you know you could say like when people saying that you know Preston was a conspiracy theorist with like Ice and Fire, there's a sliver of truth in that, in the sense that I was taking George's work and needing to find a reason for everything when George is sometimes just writes shit, you know, and a lot of stuff contradicts and it doesn't make sense. So like people look at the world and they want to make sense of everything. And so it's hard when things don't make sense to come forward and just accept that sometimes there's chaos, because certain things fit better. Oh, you know what? Israel killed him, and you're just like, maybe Kirk. His name's not Kurt, but Kirk. But like, um, you know, I understand that like that fits a certain narrative, but like Charlie Kirk was actually pretty pro-Israel. But but you know that's but what I'm bringing this forward purely in the sense that like the conspiracy theories are out there and try to make sense of the world out there, and it's like the world often just doesn't fucking make sense. It's just a fucking loon, you know. Yeah, my official opinion is that Harry Osborn's pubes definitely have the same wave. Yeah, you know, absolutely. Um, didn't that turn out to be Mysterio? Oh, about the Gwen Stacy thing? I don't know. Poor Gwen Stacy. Uh, Kate Sugar doesn't grow in Dorne. Um, oh, interesting. The glass bottles will hold more pressure than the can, so they can put more CO2 in it. Wouldn't that make it more bitter though? Because it has more. If it has more carbonation, shouldn't it be more bitter rather than being more sweet? People like the cane stuff because they think it tastes sweeter. Isn't in the U.S. The death penalty increases more violent crime? I mean, who knows? I mean, you're talking about like like determining causation versus correlation, but like I don't think it, you know, does any like I don't think it does anything. People that are committing these crimes aren't thinking about the difference between like the penalty of life in prison versus death penalty. I mean, both of those seem pretty extreme. Um, you know, so I think it shouldn't. I would imagine that it shouldn't make any difference at all. But um, but like I said, I think you know. Obviously, I'm a bleeding heart liberal, so um, I'm going to be against the death penalty. You know, Preston's political opinions are not that difficult to pinpoint. They're just like, oh, are you like a '90s liberal, like who like thought who thought the days of Bill Clinton were great? Yeah, that's pretty much. I mean, I'm probably more liberal than that, but like, yeah, you know, um, just a bleeding heart, just a bleeding heart, looking for more social programs. You know, I believe government is the solution. Um, Israel killed Kurt Cobain. Yes, that was definitely it. Um, mm, mm, mm. Charlie Kirk was saying that Epstein was Mossad. Sure, sure. I mean, have you seen? I mean, everybody's seen all the videos now. Like everybody's seen the ones where like Charlie Kirk like wants to establish like public executions for children to view, and then he wanted Biden to be given the death penalty. Like he like Charlie Kirk literally wanted Joe Biden to be executed in front of like on TV for his crimes against America. You know, those crimes have run in the country pretty damn well for 4 years. You know, like like what crimes against the infrastructure bill? Like the crimes Joe Biden had against America. Oh my God. Harry Osborn has a Jerry curl. I think, but the Jerry curl was kind of loose and falling, right? Like when we think of the Jerry curl, right? They bring up Michael Jackson as like the prime example. Or oh, here we go. Like this is a pretty undeniable Jerry curl. Okay, Lionel Richie. So here it is. You know, you put the grease, some grease in the hair, and you let it go long, and that's pretty much it. You know, but Harry Osborn and everybody, they're able to get like they like are lining up their curls, um, which takes some time. I don't know how they're not doing it without a press, you know, um, to get them all aligned like that. So he's got weird wavy hair, a weird wavy hair that's all together. Um, uh, uh, uh. What's going on here? Uh, oh, if HBO approached me, what would I adapt from A Song of Ice and Fire? Huh. I mean, I think all the good ideas have been are out there. I mean, I think Dunkin' Egg is really strong stuff, and you know, people say they want Robert's Rebellion or something, but um, I don't think you can do that much more. But I think that the beauty and the fun of Game of Thrones was the fact that you had the multi locations, and I thought that was really interesting. And I thought it was really like the minute you get tired of gray Westeros, you're now across the Dothraki Sea. And so, had I done House of the Dragon, I would have included characters from Old Town, and I would and like the free cities, and had like a character over with the Triarchy, like having stuff going on in there, and then having the characters run into each other. Because I think that's one of the most charming things is when you have characters in different places, and then they run into each other. and then the story interacts, and then they go back out and stuff like that. Like I think people love that. Like that first time Stannis arrives at the wall and those stories converge. It's like it's so thrilling. So I'd want a story like that involved I would want a story that had multiple locations. So I'm trying to think what would work. Like for a multi-location story. Because I think the Dance of the Dragons could have been it, but they're clearly not. They clearly not doing it. They wanted it all to be about the family. Like that was Ryan Condal's like idea, that he wanted the family. But I think the multiple locations is one of the most charming things. So I'm trying to think like what would have worked, like having many people at once. I mean, I guess you can try to do a Blackfire Rebellion kind of thing is what I would adapt or something, so that you could have multiple locations and the story being interwoven from different places. So, a Robert's Rebellion would do that too. So Robert's Rebellion or a Blackfire Rebellion would be what I would adapt, because I like the multiple locations. I think that was a great part of the series. And as the story like closes, even in the final seasons of Game of Thrones, it kind of like loses that appeal. You're just in one set, everybody in a room. Like, okay, there's 50 people in this room. We can't even have good conversations because there's 50 of us. No PJ page on Wikipedia. Not important enough. Though there are like YouTube lore Wikipedias on me or whatever. My Lord, the arguments between people in the chat are crazy, man. Like, this is the can't we all get along part. Yeah, that's right. Only on a Preston stream can you get the Song of Ice and Fire map, spicy politics, and whether or not Harry Osborn has Jerry curl pubes. Yes. Um, um, I think so the big argument here is about Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And one can have arguments both ways. But one's in this dangerous situation of what happens when like you find that you agree with terrorism. Like this is the big thing. This is earlier in the stream I was like, the Hiroshima and Nagasaki like sounds like terrorism, right? That they wanted to end the war sooner theoretically, and therefore the argument for is that there was a saving of life and things like that, but the action itself is definitely a targeting of civilians for a political end. It's a political threat, and so you can say that it was a good move or not. There's arguments for and against, but you can take a lot of moments of terrorism and say that these are things you might agree with or not. And it's the same with but we hear these words terrorism and it becomes an absolute, like, oh, terrorism in every single situation must be wrong. Well, I guarantee you're going to be able to come up with a hypothetical where you're going to agree with terrorism. Just like propaganda, you use the word propaganda and like propaganda sounds evil. Well, I guarantee if you're going to be able to like like brainstorm and find a situation where propaganda is you're going to agree with it in a certain situation, because the morality is not that simple. Like morality is not in a situation where you're going to be able to say 100% of the time, absolutely, this action is wrong. It's just never going to happen. So it's not that like, again, I'm not even making the case morally one way or the other about Hiroshima and Nagasaki, but like I would say it falls under the definition of terrorism is all I'm saying. Now you can take that a step further and say like, oh, is this terrorism I agree with or not? Well, I'd have to think about it, like, um, and study the situation more. But like, it's one of these things like I don't like at first everyone's like, well, I'm against terrorism. I guarantee somebody can come up with a hypothetical situation where you're like, well, okay, in that situation, I'm okay with terrorism, you know? That's the way all of these things work. It's the way all of these things work. So this is why these absolute statements like this is never okay doesn't really like it never works. Like it never works. Like of course you're going to be able to come up with a moment in history because history is long and the world is huge, and that where people are going to like, you know, find these situations. So it's just it's I understand you're having like big argument and conversation here, but it's kind of like it's kind of pointless. Like it's, you know, like whether you define something as terrorism or not doesn't necessarily make it moral or immoral. Like those don't necessarily align. And people like to use this trick. Like someone will be like, oh, well, I'm going to try to label this as, I'm going to try to label this as slavery. Oh, well, that's just slavery, isn't it? And if I can trick you into like accepting a definitional definition of something, I'm going to then bring all of your morality over and encompass it. And I, you know, it's really the case is that like morality doesn't follow linguistics. Like people somehow think that like you're going to convince people to switch their morality over linguistics. Morality is really complicated. Linguistics is really complicated, but morality does not track to linguistics. So, you know, I get it. Like, I think it's really effective to be like, oh, this is a genocide. Okay, well, it didn't matter. Like, people are like, oh, is Israel's treatment of Gaza genocide? It doesn't fucking matter. It's immoral. Like, it doesn't matter if it's a genocide or not. Like, somehow, like, morality needs to track to linguistics. It doesn't fucking matter, you know? Anyway, how do you think Dunk will be played? Confident as he tries to be? The comics use the inner monologue to really contrast him. There's only one point of view. Yeah. I think this is going to be really hard. I think it's going to be, I mean, we're going to see about this like portrayal of him, but you're right that like a very, very important part of Dunk is that he is incredibly insecure, that he is a dork. He is a dork. And in his few moments of confidence through the series are you know, big exceptions. He is a nervous, insecure dork that doesn't understand how talented he is, how worthy he is, how moral he is. He's and you are right that if the character comes out just like confident, I'm going to be a little disappointed, you know? Like I want that insecurity in there. But you're right that it's achieved through inner monologue. So what do you do? What do you do? How do you achieve that? How do you have the cake and eat it too? I hope the guy really shows his insecurity. You know, but you're right that the comic kind of shows him being this big, burly, confident guy with his thoughts being insecure. The written story, you don't really know that much about how Dunk looks at every moment. Like you know, you obviously get the first description of Dunk that he's big, but like at every moment you're not like, oh, is he towering over everybody? Like, you're not thinking about that. You're thinking, and if in each situation he's in, you're like, oh my God, he's like a little kid and all of these lords are talking down to him and he feels so foolish and dumb. Um, so I don't know. I certainly hope. I certainly hope. I'm trying to look at the. Let's bring up the actor. The actor. I mean, from what I see so far, I'm confident. Like you kind of see here, this picture of him. He doesn't look secure. He looks into, he's not standing up straight. He looks reluctant. Um, this other picture, again, he doesn't really look confident. He looks kind of insecure. So I'm 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 feeling very positive right now on the betrayal of Dunk. I mean, obviously this guy is much better looking than Dunk ever was. Okay, like, but you know, people were really happy with. I mean, we brought up Rob. People love the show Rob, and he's just very different in both look and act and how he acts from Rob in the story. And yet everyone was very happy with that portrayal. People are happy with Jon Snow. Jon Snow in the book is very different from Jon Snow in the show and things like that. It's just, this is pretty close. I mean, he's much better looking than Dunk, but at the same time, he has more of the character of Dunk on his face, I think, than the actors that played, say, Robb Stark and Jon Snow. So far I'm really happy. I think I'm optimistic about Dunk and Egg. Like I say, the only thing I'm worried about with Dunk and Egg is there aren't good story beats on when to end episodes. We find out that they're only 30-minute episodes. So the length of everything now makes sense. At first, like Carmine and I were talking about how like it's 6 hours. What are they going to do for fucking 6 hours on this story? Well, now it's only 3 hours. It's the length of a movie. It probably should have been a movie. It probably should have been a movie. The only thing I really worry about of the show is the story beats breaking at the wrong point, because there's no good breaks. There's no good breaks for the story. Really, it should have been 2 1.5 hour episodes, probably, because there is a good break in the middle, but that's about it. Like you could say, like you could end part 1 with the fight, and then go to part 2. But that's the only thing I'm really sad about, worried about. If Bran uses mind control to be king, why does he need to be king? Can't he just skin change the chosen king? Easier than warging a whole continent. Well, I mean, I don't know if Bran is going to. He might not have the power to skin change a person like that. Keep in mind that like his we established that like it's very, very difficult to skin change a person. The most powerful skin changer in the story thus far, Varamir Sixskins, who was able to skin change with 6 different animals simultaneously, was unable to skin change a human being. And Bran, from what we know, he can do it, but only if he scrambles their brain to make them to ruin them, So he may not want. It's what he does to Hodor is morally disgusting. and Bran might not want to do that again. But you know, the skin changing now. But as for like warging the whole continent, I don't know. It's just these are just kind of like ideas on like what could end war, what could actually make Winterfell seem peaceful in a kind of weird bittersweet way, like a strain a small connection between people, like more empathy, essentially. Like, could the werewood net somehow make all people just a little more empathetic, having a small um light telepathic connection between everybody? Like if everybody were betazoids, I'm talking Star Trek here. If everyone was a betazoid, um, would that help? I mean, that's not. It's kind of what's going on with the werewood net. You're not, you're blending consciousness, but just a little bit. You're just a little bit of blend to give everybody a little more empathy. I mean, they call them empaths, right? So I don't know, how to end the whole thing, but um, everyone losing their, I don't think you'll have something where like every person on the planet is just a puppet, but this idea of, could humanity be a little bit more empathetic, is the idea. Um, I was at Pearl Harbor with Ben Affleck. Um, Moment in history, but the U.S. helped rebuild Japan and Europe while respecting their culture. Do you think the U.S. can do that going forward? Hmm. Um. Hmm. Right now, Americans are not really into the American government, and the current administration isn't really into much into building anything, whether it be domestic or foreign. Um, I mean, they destroyed USAID, which is just a horrible thing. Um, Completely responsible for the famine in Gaza right now. Um, Disgusting thing. Elon Musk and um, there's a character named Jeremy Lewin. They they if there were hell there, they would just burn in it for what they've done, shutting down USAID. Just horrible shit. And just millions will die. Millions. It's just disgusting stuff. But well, I don't. And do I think the U.S. will ever be in this situation again? The thing is like the U.S. is a country in decline, and even before the Trump era, where it's just like America in decline, now in hyper mode. But like in the general sense, when you look at like say global GDP, like every year the United States is going to have a smaller and smaller share of global GDP, meaning like relatively speaking, America becomes less important every year. That's just a fact of life. And so, America like is always going to be declining as being the world leader. That is just a fact of life, can't be stopped. Trump just put it in fucking hyperdrive. And not to mention, you could just say abstractly, like all empires fall, right? US is not going to be in a situation ever again where we're rebuilding um, other nations' on the level of the Marshall Plan. Like, just never fucking gonna happen. One, America doesn't have the strength, it doesn't have the relative strength. And it also, like, it doesn't have the political will anymore. So it's just not that's just like not going to happen. Now, as for like respecting culture, American, see, unlike like say Spanish colonialism specifically, where the Spanish were very interested in like teaching Catholicism and the Spanish language. Like, Americans aren't that interested in that. Like, there's no active pursuit of Americans wanting to shift a cultural practice. Like, and there never has been. There's no interest. Like, the U.S. is like, as much as like I'm an atheist and secular, and I would love for the U.S. to push secular values on the world. It's never done that. It's never fucking done that. It's never. It's promoted, like, it promotes like trade with itself, like it promotes countries to want to trade with it. Like, it makes what people want to like try to have free markets. Like, there's some capitalism that's pushed, but for the most part, the US doesn't like tell countries to speak English or to eat hamburgers or to be Christians or any of these things. Like, the United States as a government doesn't do that. It's for the most part, like, it's imperialism from the state sponsored sense was some health benefits back when it was giving out like, aid and assistance, like PEPFAR, things like that. And like economic stuff, like, are you going to trade with us? Are you going to trade your oil? Are you going to trade are you going to let us sell you rice? Things like this. Like, these are just what the U.S. is interested in. Like, it's interested in directly things that are directly, as a government, things that benefit America directly. Now, are there Americans that have different ideas that want to do things? Yeah, of course. There's American missionaries. There's Mormons. They do that. That's not sponsored by the American government, And so, like, when U.S. was rebuilding Afghanistan or Iraq, like, they didn't try to, they had no interest. There was no interest in like having them not be Muslim. Like, there was America didn't push that. The only thing it pushed was like, oh, how are you doing with your oil exports, Iraq? Like, Afghanistan, how are you doing with stability? Trying to can you trade more crops? Can you maybe get mineral resources or something? So it's the U.S. has never been like, it takes a lot of resources to try to disrespect a foreign culture. Like, what's the point of it, right? Like, the Americans, like, it's like, what's the point of America like trying to change another country's culture? Like, in many ways, I feel that, I mean, in many ways, I would be like, hey, we should promote equal rights to women and minorities everywhere. We should promote democracy everywhere. But for the most part, we don't really do that. Like, we don't. We just try to promote some economics. Very, very little time and money as resources are put into these other things. So no, I don't think that, like, I don't think America will be rebuilding much in the future, and I don't think. But even if they were, like, the opposite, disrespecting culture is not been in the like America's interest. So I don't think like they would ever want to waste resources on that. People, you got to remember, like, Americans are very, very selfish, very, very selfish. He's mopey in the trailer. Yeah, I think mopey works. You know. Oh, I mean, as with any issue, the word genocide just triggers responsibilities. I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree that 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 rhetoric works on people. You know, but at the same time, like really, when you think about it, um, morality doesn't track with linguistics. So it's all, you know, it's. I mean, I get it, but the international community has stood by and let genocide happen how many times in the world? What are they going to do? You know, what are they going to do? Um, it's you know, I mean, I get it. Like rhetoric can convince people, but it's not. It doesn't really change anything. Um, I just want Cerebro X-Men scene where Brand gets rolled in and puts on the werewolf crown. That's true. U.S. did not respect Japanese culture. They hijacked it for capitalist gain. I mean, this is the thing: is like what do you define as culture? I don't think that like that's an incorrect statement. I don't necessarily think it's a correct statement either. You know, like keep in mind that um, depends what you think culture is. Like culture is so poorly defined. Like anthropologists have an entire discipline trying to define it and thinking about it. I mean, culture is mainly like identity. Um, is what they kind of settle on, like what a human being thinks about when they think about their identity, like oh the culture. Um, and so you know, in many ways, like Japanese identity like shifted and was, you know, perhaps created and things like that. Um, in many ways created post World War II as as they like search for random practices to suddenly promote to like be Japanese, you know, like I write about this in my book, the Mikoshi carrying festivals in Japan. Like no one was doing these fucking Mikoshi carrying festivals like prior to World War II. Like maybe one fucking village. But then they're like, oh God, the international community's coming in and we're gonna lose our Japaneseness. So we've got to like be Japanese. So now everybody has a fucking Mikoshi carrying festival going on. And you know, it's not like they were having like you go to Japan and like it's like every fucking week they've got some festival down the street where all the girls are dressing in yukatas and like it's beautiful. But like really like before World War II, you think they were having fucking festivals down the street where everyone was wearing yukatas? No, like they're just fucking doing this shit. Like either for capitalistic reasons because markets make money. I mean, like and little festivals make money, but two, like the fear of like internationalism, like making them disappear. Um, so I mean, it all depends on what you think culture is. Like it was. Do you think like Japanese culture was not capitalist before World War II, and that was like an important part of their identity? And while is capitalism an important part of their identity now? You know, like you ask two anthropologists, you're gonna have three different answers on that. So it's not that I don't disagree, like I don't like agree or disagree with you on that, but it's like it's really kind of like a silly thing when people talk about like respecting culture. Do you mean like respecting what part of a culture? Like some people like I like all through my like all my life I've run into people who are like claim to be cultural relativists and they're like, man, I just don't believe that like, you know, other cultures are like my culture is better than other cultures. But when you actually like nail them down and you're like, well, so do you believe that like, I mean, the big thing is you say, okay, do you believe in genital, like female genital mutilation? Do you think people should be having their clits cut off? And you take them to that extreme, you go, well, no. Well, geez, I guess you don't respect foreign cultures because, like, in North Africa, they love that shit. And so you're like, oh, well, okay, okay, no, even if you get them on that, then you're like, okay, well, how do you feel about child marriages? And you're like, oh, so you don't respect foreign cultures. So it's like you always get to this point where you're like, oh, I respect a foreign culture. Well, what aspect of it, and like the Romans went around like eliminating human sacrifice, because they're like, look, you can do whatever the fuck you want, and the Romans for the most part didn't care as long as people paid their taxes, except for human sacrifice. They're like, okay, you got to cut that shit out. The human sacrifice thing, please stop. Like, like, so it's just not true. They're building prisons. The prisons is all about like personal benefit, like publicly subsidized, privately profitable. Like, oh, how can we make money? It's all cronyism. Imagine that. Man. Inflation means getting bigger, bro. You don't get it. Oh, that's true. That's true. Are you making the joke on the fact that inflation's return? Remember when people talked about inflation and everyone was like, "Oh my God, Biden and it's inflation." Inflation's just as fucking bad, and it just disappeared from our media because the media's right wing now. But like, what a right winger could justify and be like, "Oh man, inflation, you're getting bigger," but at the same time, like, you're bro, you're going to the gym, your inflation, you're getting bigger. Trump needs to talk less, not more. Trump is completely gone. Oh my God, he definitely had a stroke 2 weeks ago. Dude definitely had a stroke. Like, I am not like I understand that, like, I'm very anti-conspiracy on like real world stuff, but it's like, it's so fucking obvious that he had a stroke. I mean, the whole side of his face is like melted off. Like, he's definitely like, I mean, I've seen, and he's gone. He's gone. I wish Preston was more optimistic now. No, I don't know. Dude, Preston said if Trump won, the U.S. would be ruined. Now you want me to be optimistic? I mean, isn't it getting ruined? Isn't it being ruined? Was I not right? Culture is what sells in capitalistic society. That's the funny thing, right? Is that, like, people are more obsessed with identity than ever, but it is mostly about like what products they consume. Like, people really think that their identity is what they consume and what like commercial products they surround themselves with. Like, if I go to a really fancy coffee shop and I drink fancy coffee, I'm a fancy person. If I'm a foodie and I really go to fancy restaurants, I'm a fancy person, Oh God, is there another? What's the other type of inflation? I don't inflate. Well, that's the thing, right? Romans outlawed human sacrifice when they had massive parades with executed people. I mean, some, yeah, obviously the Romans killed people. Though they do say that the gladiator fighting and the deaths in the pits is not as bad as they say, that like injury, like people got injured and then they fought another day. That it wasn't like this to the death shit. Where are Carmine and Trey tonight? I don't know. I guess they're taking a night off. Trace has a real job. He has a real job right now, so he he's not gonna be staying up on Sunday night when he's got to go to work. And Carmine, he takes the night off sometimes. Sometimes he doesn't. He doesn't. Especially when he thinks politics will get a little too spicy, he takes a night off. Do you think that Edric and Darkstar get along? This is a funny thing. So there's a fan like groupthink that Edric was going to be Darkstar, or like that Edric was going to grow up, and because of the 5-year gap getting abandoned, he got transformed into Darkstar. I actually don't believe this at all, because the mega prologue of A Feast for Crows predates the ending of the 5-year gap. So Darkstar was introduced prior to like the 5-year gap being abandoned. So he wasn't going to be Edric. Maybe, you could argue a different thing, that maybe like George eventually thought that the Edric character wouldn't fit or something, but they were never going to be the same thing. But would Edric and Darkstar get along? I don't think Edric, from what we've seen of him, I don't think Edric kind of understands the world very much, and he seems very nervous and awkward, and doesn't really know how to respond to things. And so I don't think he'd get along with Darkstar. I think Darkstar would say a bunch of things, and Edric would get confused and nervous and just be like, what's going on? And then Darkstar would be like, oh my God, this kid is boring, and like move on. Like they have very incompatible personalities. Like when you reread the Arya Edric thing, you're just like Arya asks a question, and then he's like, she's engaged to my aunt, and then he looks uncomfortable, and you're like, what the fuck is wrong with you, Edric? Like, have a fucking conversation, talk about some shit. I wanted to come over here and talk to you, but what? I mean, I wanted to talk to Ned in King's Landing, and then fucking Edric. Anyway, thank you. I'm going to head to bed now, but it's been a good evening. I hope this was a good stream for people. With Harry, Norman Osborn's pubes got discussed, and so what more can anyone ask in an evening? So, thank you very much for being with me, and I'll talk to you guys later. I'll see you next time.